All right, friends. We're gonna get it started. This is a weird time. Not when I normally do these kinds of things, but here I am. Uh, anyway, I'll wait to see when people start rolling in. Looks like folks are starting to join at the moment. So if you haven't been, um, part of one of these streams in the past, the way this works is I have the books. I have both copies of the book here. We have a standard one as well as the limited edition, special cover. And the way this works is I just allow you guys to ask me questions about anything that you want to see that's contained within the book. I flip through it, do my best to answer your questions, and we just talk about it. You'll notice it says like subscriber only mode is on, and that is because it makes it so that, one, please consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't subscribed already. But it also makes it so that bots, because I've had a lot of bots, like just like spammy porn bots showing up on my regular like live streams when we do like actual plays, and forcing it to be subscriber only sort of removes that whole issue. Which basically it says all you have to do is be subscribed for 5 minutes, but a bot pretty much will never do that. So yeah, morning folks, or evening. It's 1 a.m. here. I had planned to do this yesterday. I had planned to do this with a little more lead up to it so you guys wouldn't get caught off guard. But sometimes I found these random impromptu live streams end up doing ridiculously well. We get like a bunch of people in here, turns into a whole thing. So okay, I think it's Nikolay. Okay, all right, hang on. We're gonna try to keep it off of slow mode if we can. If not, we'll get there. We'll have to get there. So, chapter 1 is the Radiant Citadel itself. So I will tell you, the table of contents does a pretty good job of spelling things out. It also has a stat block section at the end. They're not, so it falls under the what I consider kind of a pitfall of the anthology series. And by that I mean we don't have an appendices for monsters, and we don't have an appendices for magic items. The magic items are sprinkled throughout, and you'll have to hunt and peck. I don't even know if there are any. There are no new spells, as far as I know. There's no new backgrounds. There are several new stat blocks, and while they are sprinkled throughout the adventure, there is sort of a section at the end here that just says stat blocks and tells you the page numbers if you want to flip to the exact stat block. Once the D&D Beyond copy becomes available, I will do my typical coverage, and I do plan to go back and cover the stuff I haven't covered. But in doing that, we'll be able to search on D&D Beyond and see if there are any new magic items. So chapter 1, again, as I stated, is the Radiant Citadel. So if you're unfamiliar, a very high level thing is this is a anthology series with 14 or 13 different adventures. And the Radiant Citadel is sort of the hub world, if you want to think about it like a video game. All of the different adventures are sort of like a sub world with like a crystal that lets you get to that world. And the Radiant Citadel serves as a central point that you can use to go back to, and then foray out into your adventures and come back. So chapter 1 covers everything about the Radiant Citadel, what it is, how it works, what the different jewels and things, how to use it, how to create adventures around it, lore and things of that nature. Okay. Show me the axolotl, please. Yeah, it's awesome. 119. It's as what I've seen thus far, it is my favorite creature in this book. So let me get to that. 24, I think it is. For high level things for people who want to know, no appendices, no index. It is 224 pages long. Let me just get back to see if we have a pronunciation for it at the front. It's Thelshalotl? I don't know. It's basically an elementally fiery axolotl creature, which is awesome. I love that thing. It's great. It's an elemental type. It's got regen. It's got fire aura. It's got it can shoot out lava basically from its body. Very, very cool, and it's huge size. Well, thank you all for coming out for the first time. So I've been meaning to get. So I'm gonna be frank with you guys. I've been meaning to get more into. This year has just been wild with everything that's happened so far this year. Little bit of burnout happening occasionally, but working to really try and ramp this stuff up. And I want to start doing more live streams, even if it's not like big book Q&As like this, even if it's just like and then I necessarily even need to be a Q&A live stream, just a live stream about whatever. Obviously we did the live reacts to like the directs and things of that nature. Those are really fun. I really enjoy doing those. And obviously we do the live play stuff, which we are working to get a couple more live play things off the ground. We're talking about bringing back Rada 7 Parts for a second season. We're talking about doing the Spelljammer Academy adventures. Power Rangers RPG is in the works, live play as well. It's just everything wants to seem to land on Wednesday, so I have to figure out if I'm just gonna spend out my queue out my Wednesdays for a while, or if I can mix some things up. Let's see. How many adventures are there? Like I said, I think it's 13. It lists it right at the start. But that's basically how the chapters are broken down, so we can just count the chapters. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. 13 adventures. What is my favorite monster? Yeah, I think we kind of covered it with the axolotl creature there. I think it's pretty awesome. Yeah, the adventures, some of them, I don't want to necessarily spoil stuff for folks who may be interested in playing them, but they're really cool, and they're very obviously it was a big thing on a big focus on like diversity, and you can kind of see that when you just look through like even I also will say one thing I want to say is the art is phenomenal in this book. I think it's absolutely fantastic. All of the art pieces, even if it's just like something kind of spooky and creepy like this guy, very cool. But even like the NPCs art is also very neat. And again, you can kind of get an idea even just from the art, how things like what sort of culture the adventure is kind of created around, which is pretty sweet. And I was again the which one was it? It was in the interview I did with Ajit. The Between Tangled Roots is a pretty interesting one, as is the final one, Orchids of the Invisible Mountain. I haven't. I'll be honest with you. I have not read through every single adventure fully to give you the full breakdown of what's great and what's not. But from what I've seen, there's a lot of good stuff here. It is an anthology, although they are designed level-wise, that you could, in theory, run it like a campaign. So the first adventure is for levels 1 to 2, and then as you continue on, it's 3, 4, 5, 6, all the way up to level 14. So if you wanted to run everything in this book sort of connected, and again, they are sort of connected around that central hub world, if you were to do that, you could, in theory, run a level 1 to 14 campaign by just playing the adventures in here. And again, they do have a little bit of like through lines between them, but it is still fundamentally an anthology series, so they can also be drag and dropped into your campaign as you see fit. I can also tell you that coming out this Tuesday, when the book officially launches, there will be a DM's Guild product that is also written by a bunch of the folks that were involved with the writing of this book. And that's going to have a ton more stuff to expand out the various different locations and things within the Radiant Citadel. So be on the lookout for a video coming out about that as well. Okay. What's the CR of the axolotl? Hang on. I think it's 9, I want to say. Let's find out. Where is it? It is a challenge rating 10. Sorry, challenge rating 10 on the axolotl. Are there any new pantheon or deities of notes? That is something that I would have to check individually in each one of them. It's possible because everything is unique. So we do have sort of like some overarching kind of concepts here within the Radiant Citadel about these incarnate creatures. The Dawn Incarnates, they're called, right? Keepers of vast wisdom from distant lands. The Incarnate's a collection of spirits bound within gemstones, and that's the art you've probably seen of like the amethyst tiger and the ruby pangolin and things of that nature, the amber scorpion. So they sort of have like deity-esque vibes to them, and they're sort of part of the overall aspect of it. But I'd have to look because I'm gonna go on a limb, out on a limb, and say that there probably is deity information in some of these adventures. There's definitely some sort of vibes about that with the last adventure. It's very interesting. I just like I feel like the book isn't technically even out yet, so fully spoiling the adventure details I feel is a little rough. But yeah, Audrey kind of spoils it a little bit in the interview that I did. There's a spoiler warning in there though if you want to not get spoiled, but it even has little things about how to set the adventure within different areas, right? So even looking at the first adventure, right, Salted Legacy, it says the Dinsing, I can pronounce it. Yeah, Dinsing Market could be any city's bustling trade district. Use the following suggestions to help contextualize it in the wider world. So it has through the Radiant Citadel. It says residents of the Radiant Citadel seeking a different selection of goods than those available in the trade discal might be referred to the Dinsing Night Market. Those who travel, oh boy, how do you pronounce that? Subsunko arrive a quarter mile from the market. And then it has Eberron, right? Given its eclectic array of goods, vendors, and colorful magical signs, the Dinsing Market could be part of Sharn's trade fair market. And it also says Forgotten Realms. It says it might be appear amid the cloud peaks of Am or along the Vilhan Reach. The Dinsing Market can have a distinctive addition to any region, which I like that they even recognize that, like, if you don't, these, because it's an anthology, right, and you can drag and drop these things, it has a little bit, and it's not just that adventure. All of the adventures have a little piece about, like, if you wanted to set it in the Forgotten Realms, if you wanted to keep it sort of in its traditional setting via the Radiant Citadel, or if you wanted to kind of take it through Eberron. And I appreciate that because that shows that you're trying to further treat this as a true anthology series, saying here's a little bit about how you could place it in different locations, which is forward thinking for sure, especially if folks aren't really interested in the Radiant Citadel but are interested in the adventures. That's sort of a way around that, and I do think that that again is a good forward thinking way to go about it. What's chapter 2 all about? Again, I'm not gonna, if your questions are gonna be what is each chapter about, why don't I give you this? Okay, I'm gonna read through. I'll tell you each of the names of each of the adventures, and they each have a description, like a one-line description. So I'll give you all of that to give you sort of a heads up. Also, I don't know if we'll be lucky enough to have any stamp champs here for after the fact, but if you're unfamiliar with that, that's when I do these. Usually I ask if someone who's watching it, watching live or watching after the fact, would be kind enough to grab timestamps for the various things that we discuss so that I can post it in the video after the fact. I'm not asking any of you here to do it, but if you want to and shoot those over after the fact or just leave it as a comment on this video, that's an option as well. So, level 1 to 2 adventure is called Salted Legacy. That's what we were just talking about. A conflict between rival night market vendors draws characters into a hunt for a mysterious saboteur and a series of whimsical contests. The next one is for level 3 called Written in Blood. So it's gonna from here on out, it's gonna increase by level each time. So I'll just tell you the name and the description. So, Written in Blood, a community is terrorized by a horror lurking in a distant farmhouse. The Fiend of Hollow Mine, the cure of a spreading disease. The cure for a spreading curse leads from an abandoned mine to a city celebrating the departed. Wages of Vice, a murderer stalks the streets during a raucous festival. Sins of the Elders, a slighted spirit takes vengeance on the community that forgot her by stealing their memories. Gold for Fools and Princes, mysterious creatures cause a gold mine to collapse, precipitating a race between rival princes to save those trapped. Trail of Destruction, a legendary creature reawakens and begins a chain reaction of volcanic eruptions that threaten the land. In the Mists of Manavarsha, a local champion goes missing after a deadly flood, leading to a search for her along the rivers of a vast swamp. Between tangled roots, rageful spirits provoke a dragon to go on a deadly rampage. The Night Seas Sucker, I think that's how you pronounce that, right? Sucker? Whatever. A quest for ancient lore reveals threats from the past and leads to a mysterious nation beneath the waves. Buried Dynasty, agents of a long-lived emperor seek a timeless secret to keep their ruler in power at any cost. And the final one is Orchids of the Invisible Mountain. Adventurers must travel to the Feywild and the Far Realm to prevent otherworldly forces from tearing a land apart. I will tell you, Between Tangled Roots does have a new dragon creature, which is pretty sweet. And yeah, Orchids of the Invisible Mountain may edge out Trail of Destruction. While I do love the axolotl, the fact that it does take you to the Feywild and the Far Realm, and that is very apparent by some of the things that you encounter, the aberration creatures, and even some new ones that are added for this book. It's choice stuff, let me tell you. Okay. Is this book good for creating homebrew campaign in, or is it very focused in the written adventures? So I would say I come at it from a couple different perspectives regarding homebrew. So one, I like anything new that introduces me to a new city or a new region because I can see what other folks, and especially what WotC considers to be enough. Not that WotC's the end-all be-all, because they're definitely not. But what they consider to be sort of a standard thing when you're trying to describe like a city or a region, what information do they provide, right? How much detail do they give? Because yeah, when I develop my own homebrew stuff, do I sit there and think, where are the tax dollars going for the townsfolk? What are they paying for in the town? Yeah. Do you need to know that if I were to make a campaign setting? No, probably not. But it gives me an idea of like what are the key things that I need to make sure I have covered in case people have questions. But the nice thing about the Radiant Citadel is it being a hub world. You can make up your own sub-worlds, as many as you want, that can be connected back to this central point. And that's actually something I think I'm pretty excited to see what people are going to do with the DM's Guild. Because, I mean, I'm simplifying it here, but basically there's a big focus on crystals. And essentially you have like a crystal, which works almost like a ship or a portal that will take you from the main hub world to the sub-regions. And the 13 kind of sub-regions offered in here are obviously all themed around different cultures. So you'll be in, obviously injected to terminology and things you may be unfamiliar with. But the way it was described to me was basically, you're kind of given the information and the lore you're given in here is basically if you were a stranger who went to a strange region or country or place you'd never been before, and then you were sort of guided around by the locals, and they said, hey, you need to know this is the place you got to go here, this is the food you want to have, this guy makes the best beer, whatever it is. That's sort of the information that they distilled down in sort of the lore at the start. Then there's the adventure for each region, and at the end of each adventure is a gazetteer to take things beyond if you want to expand it. But like I said, given what's coming out in the DM's Guild, there's going to be even more information. But if you were to use all of that, there's no reason you couldn't build your own hub. Or not even hub. You could build your own hub, obviously. But if you wanted to build your own sub-worlds with a crystal that takes people to your region, you could do that, and that would be a really easy way to have live, or even better yet, go this way. you make your own little homebrew world that you live in, and you kind of do whatever you need to do with your party members. And when it gets a little too stagnant, right, you're done with what's going on, you don't really know where you want to go or things of that nature, then you could just open it up to the fact that this is connected to the Radiant Citadel, and then gives you the option to expand out into a variety of different locations. So I think it has a lot of potential. I don't know if that really answers your question, but there obviously it is an anthology adventure series, so each chapter is an adventure. But like I said, at the end of each one, there is that gazetteer of information if you want to continue to expand or what kind of new ideas you could use. Magic items. So the problem being is if there are magic items, they are dispersed throughout the adventures, and you will need to flip through them, and in an ideal world, find something like a section that's labeled treasure, and hopefully have some information, which we can do. I can casually do while I answer questions, just flip through the chapters and see if we come across anything that specifically states as treasure. I did see a charm, like a magical charm with so many charges on it. I saw that in one of the adventures. I see some vendors here. Treasure. I don't see, at least the first chapter. I don't see anything about treasure. So I see some gold pieces, nothing crazy here. Yeah, let's see what else we got here. Is there a festival in this anthology book that has been a prominent? As that has been a prominent. One of them kind of has like a Day of the Dead. It's not necessarily like a festival, but like one of like that's happening in one of the adventures. There's sort of like a Day of the Dead adventure, or like there. That was that one I mentioned. That was they're kind of like celebrating the fallen or the lost. So it has sort of a Day of the Dead vibe to it. So that kind of, I guess, could be the festival. Yes, there are some Asian inspired adventures in here. How many new stat blocks? I can tell you pretty easily. Stand by. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 new stat blocks. Which Spelljammer set? You mean the Spelljammer box set that comes out next month? And I've done several videos on Spelljammer. We're going through and looking for magic items at the moment to see, because they're not separated out. Well, there's a I see like in italics reference to magic items that are not new. Things like I just saw Heward's handy haversack. I saw a helm of telepathy earlier on. I didn't see. I'm not noticing anything, at least so far, that was specifically listed as like a treasure. Sometimes at the end of it, it'll say like treasure, and it'll list off what you can get if you do a certain thing. Let's see. We're looking for magic items. I mentioned that I saw a charm, and someone had asked about Asian inspired. That was in that particular one. It was like a. Well, it's got dinosaur skeletons. Let's see. Here's some spell scrolls, periapt of health. Nothing new yet that I've come across. This is actually, see, you can see this is kind of the Day of the Dead inspired one, right? You can kind of tell from the imagery there. Roughly how long are the adventures? I think it could, if your guys are really efficient, probably be a one-shot, depending. It's hard to tell. Every time I've ever run a one-shot, it usually lasts longer than one single session. But I think you could probably, I'd say maybe 2, maybe 3, if depends on the size of your group too, right? So I'd say anywhere between 1 and 3 potentially, but some of the later ones are pretty extensive because they have a lot of enemies, and those enemies are difficult enemies. So that may take longer just to get through the enemies that you're fighting. Okay. Let's see. Yeah, of course, no problem. Well, I'm glad you guys are here. Yes, the last one we mentioned that it takes you to the far realm. And there's some pretty nasty aberration creatures, and the overall story of that is pretty nutty. So I would say that one is cool. And then we also mentioned the one with the magma axolotl that shoots magma out of its body. That one I also like. Um, let's see. Um, nope. Spelljammer. Oh, you mean unless you mean Spelljammer Academy, which I did a video on already. And I said that I wasn't going to cover the adventure part of Spelljammer Academy because we're actually going to stream playing it here on the channel, and I'll do my review of Spelljammer Academy after I get a chance to play all the adventures. Best art in the book. That's tricky because the art is all phenomenal. I mean, here's one of the enemy. Here's one of the creatures. Look at this guy. It's kind of like a funky looking owl bear dude. The I don't even know how to pronounce that. I'm not gonna try. It's the demon though. It's pretty cool. I'm still looking. Let's see. I'm not seeing. I bet you if there is magic items in here, they're gonna be like those things where they take an existing magic item and they like tweak one or two things about it, and that's like what makes it new. But I haven't seen much to say. See this one you can kind of tell someone's asking about sort of Asian vibes. You can tell that this one, Sins of Our Elders. You can just tell by the armor, the weaponry. See. Bring them mind shielding. Nope. That's a lantern that bears a magical flame, but that's really the extent of it. Nothing crazy there. I'm not really seeing much called out specifically about new magic items. Like I said, I can't appreciate the stat blocks being separated out in the table of contents. I do appreciate that. Yeah, the alt art cover is pretty cool, and you can even see like the Radiant Citadel kind of has a glow to it. That I like the very crystalline sort of nature of the book, and it shows off a bunch of the different incarnates on there. Scariest creature, yeah, D&D Beyond will absolutely be the savior for finding out if there's new magic items. Scariest creature / ability in the book. That's a good question. Let's keep going. Let's see if we can get across the scariest one. No, that's not too much. Orm Vorax. It's like a multi-legged weasel character. This is the axolotl. Let's see what his fire attack does, because that could be potentially scary. Pyroclasm. Gouts of molten lava erupt from its body. Each creature in a 30-foot radius sphere centered on the creature must make a DC 15 dex save or take 66 fire damage and 66 bludgeoning damage. That's pretty nasty. Maps, in particular, battle maps. Yes, a lot. There are battle maps, as you can see. Like here's a battle map right there. We also have regional maps as well. So, the Muertos adventure you had mentioned, is there a monster associated with it? Fiend of the Hollow Mine. Yes, the monster associated with that adventure is this sort of owl fiend creature. Okay, this one's got that owl creature is a pretty nasty one called Plague Winds. And emits a chilling, disease-ridden wind in a 60-foot line, 10 feet wide. Each creature must make a DC 13 con save or take 4d12 cold damage and become poisoned. While poisoned, they can't regain hit points. At the end of every hour, they must succeed on a DC 13 con save or gain a level of exhaustion. If they're in direct sunlight when they make this saving throw, they automatically succeed. Otherwise, if they're not in direct sunlight and someone casts something like Lesser Restoration on them, it doesn't get rid of the effect. I don't see any stats for the incarnates, and that kind of bums me out. I thought that would have been a really cool concept. There was other creature here that was made of arms. This guy, the Soul Shaker. It's just like a ball of arms. Kind of terrifying, imagery-wise. They can also steal your health and grow more arms from itself. There is a new dragon. Someone had asked about a dragon. There is a new dragon creature. Let's keep on going. So you had specifically, all right, what was your questions? Written in blood. And Mask of Manavarsha. Okay. 34 was written in blood. All right, so written in blood. What's the creature? That was that soul. I think that was the Soul Shaker. The one I just showed you, where it's literally a creature made out of different arms and stuff. That's the monster from that one. A grasping mass of humanoid limbs, the Soul Shaker is an obsessive claimer of corpses and collector of body parts. These nightmarish creatures arise from ghoulish collections of severed limbs exposed to necromantic energies, or when numerous crawling claws form a cooperative relationship. That's terrifying. So that's your written in blood one. No new feats as far as I can tell. And as far as I can tell, no new spells either. Mask of Manavarsha was 120. We were getting there on our way through here. We covered the axolotl. Mask book here. What do we got? Mask of Manavarsha has the Riverine. Looks like another super jacked, chiseled, I think it's a fae. Is it fae? Yeah, it's a fae creature, like a river spirit. More than mere waterway guardians, riverines embodiments of particular rivers. They must take spirits of nature take shape to defend their waters and interact with those who travel along their currents. What's he got? Nah, he's got nothing too crazy. 1:40 a.m. here in New York. Yes, the Whistler is terrifying, and it's in the best adventure in my opinion. Between Tangled Roots has some really cool art. This is the one that I spoke to when I talked to Ajit about it. He said it's a really interesting adventure because you could like kill the big bad like right out the gate immediately and kind of just like end the adventure that way, like if your adventurers and your party wants to do that. But there's a lot like apparently more interesting nuance and stuff that's like very like moving or heartbreaking. But check this out. This art. Isn't that cool? Kind of reminds me of like the Great Wall mixed with like Snake Way from Dragon Ball Z. The Flames Everlasting Sky Bridge stretches over steep hills and seas to the island of Lambakula, I think is how you pronounce it. Kugo, what's going on, buddy? Oh, this is the one. Between Tangled Roots. Yeah, it's got the dragon. Look at that guy. Isn't that cool? Let's go back to, let me get the pronunciation on that guy because I don't want to mess it up. They did also include pronunciation guides at the front of every section. Bakunawa is the name of this kind of creature. Worshipped as draconic avatars of storm and tide, Bakunawa soar over the archipelagos they call home. Iridescent scales crackling with lightning cover Bakunawa's fearsome serpentine body, and the sharp movements of its mighty wings echo with thunderous winds. Known for their mercilessness in battle, Bakunawa swallow whole any who challenge them. This is a challenge rating 12 gargantuan dragon. Okay, what do we got? Anything crazy? It's got a bite attack that does piercing and lightning damage. It can do a swallow effect. Nothing too crazy there. But its ability is Storm Slam. Does bludgeoning damage and thunder damage, and the target is pushed 10 feet in a horizontal direction away from the creature, and it has a couple legendary actions. Nimble Glide, Slam, and Lightning Strikes. It's a cool looking creature, but it kind of falls a little flat for me on its, like, the uniqueness of its stat block. Like, its bite is piercing damage and lightning damage, and then, like, someone had commented that it's a really long stat block for bite, but it's basically the swallow whole ability is kind of built into it, right? So it bites the creature. If the creature is large or smaller, it must succeed on a DC 17 strength saving throw or be swallowed. So it's not like one of those ones where you have to be grappled and then bit. Like, the bite can swallow you in the same action as the bite itself. And then what's interestingly enough is at the start of each of its turns, you take lightning damage instead of acid damage, like you more often than not would when you're swallowed by a creature. And then again, as per usual, if you do so much damage to it, you'll be regurgitated. Standard stuff. Let's see. It's not out to the public yet. It'll be out on Tuesday. So I have early review copies sent to me. Because that's just the thing that happens. But a couple more days. So it'll be out on D&D Beyond on Tuesday, and local game stores, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, all that stuff. All right, we'll continue on our adventure. This one's got a purple worm. I think this is the one that Justice wrote, I believe. Get the purple worm busting up through like a marketplace, maybe. Carpet of Flying. Oh, this lady's got like a prosthetic arm. Pretty cool piece of art. The elf over here. Oh, thank you, sir, for the super chat. Really appreciate it. Yes, I will be looking into Journeys Beyond the Radiant Citadel when it comes out. I already have a copy of it. I just haven't had a chance to look through it extensively, but I know the guy who kind of spearheaded the whole thing behind it, so that will be going on for sure. I'll see Nolder's Marvelous Pigments in here. Again, I'm not really seeing much in the way of new items. Yeah, this is the one I think that Justice wrote because it's got the Pari, which is a angelic harbinger gifted with foresight. A visit from a Pari is often a prophetic warning or portent of an event yet to come. Pari have pastel blue skin, wear robes and armor, and have 2 sets of wings with vivid red feathers sprouting from their back. There. Oh, well, Matthew, I will be sure to let you know. Yes, I will absolutely be covering it though. I can't wait to see. Like I said, I have it. I just have to take some time to read through it. Yeah, as a Baron Chamberlain, yeah, I agree. I talked a lot with Ajit after we got off for about like almost like another 45 minutes after we got off of the interview. And I actually do wish I had recorded some of that because we did have some really interesting insight about the art direction for it. But we also talked a lot about the difference in about anthologies, right? About how like Tales from the Yachting Portal is a book that everybody pretty much forgot even came out, which was the original 5e anthology series. And the turnaround time for Candlekeep Mysteries was like I heard that it was relatively short. In the interview I had with Ajit, he said that he wrote like one of the domains for Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft, and he had 2 months writing time to write a whole domain, and he was able to give his writers for the chapters of this book 5 times that amount. So all the writers had 10 months worth of time to develop their section, which is obviously a lot more time. And he even went through the process talking about like how they edit stuff. So if you haven't seen the interview um, that came out today, the video I interviewed Ajit earlier today, and it was a really good conversation. He had a lot of awesome insight. So I would highly recommend checking that out. Wait, which adventure was the carnival-esque art for? Carnival-esque. Was it the one with the purple worm or from 1 to 1,000? How would I rate these adventures? It's a pretty big scale. I would need to know what qualifies as a 1 and what qualifies as a 1,000 to be able to accurately place these adventures in that scale. Is this going to be more like Candlekeep or Strixhaven? It's more like Candlekeep, like a more refined Candlekeep, I would say. One of the things, and I touched on this in the interview as well, is this is new content. When you write something like Candlekeep Mysteries or even Tales from the Yawning Portal, you're still kind of like you have to do justice and honor the stuff that came before, right? Right. So Candlekeep is an established location. There's lore, there's history, there's things there. All of the stuff in Tales from the Yawning Portal was retreadings and reworks of old content from old like adventure modules. Radiant Citadel and all of the sub hub worlds within it, they're all brand new content, which I think works extremely in its favor. In that you don't have to, it's not going to have that issue of not living up to the hype. Candlekeep felt rushed in my mind as well. So I think this gets a lot more credit just on the fact that it took longer to put the book out and the team was a much more collaborative, it seems. And again, just a point of reference, since Ajit wrote the Radiant Citadel piece, right, like the actual hub world, and he had the opportunity basically to write the Radiant Citadel first, and then just say, "Hey, everybody, here's what the Radiant Citadel is." Kind of just figure out how this incorporates into your adventure. But instead, he let all of the 13 writers write their 13 adventures and the cultures and the worlds of their different areas, and then used that to inform the Citadel to kind of make it more cohesive and have through lines. And I think that really shows when you read through what's here. Um, let's see. Um, Yeah, this was not, again, they usually don't do too much in the way of items in these books. There are some, maybe, we'll see. There are no new classes, correct. This is not a character, it's not a player book, really. This is a DM's book. Um, yeah, and again, it's not set to Sigil or Sigil, however you want to pronounce it. It's not set to be a replacement for Planescape or that. It's exist in addition to it. And actually, when I asked Ajit, that's one of the things he said. He would love to have that back, to have a way where you could integrate Planescape or even Dark Sun with the Radiant Citadel as kind of oppositions or opposites of them. Yes, he wrote Kalkari in the Ravenloft reboot, and he wrote one of the mini domains. I forget the name of it. The lady with the crying makeup and the poofy feather dress. Oh boy. Hang on. We're flipping back here. Trying to find this one piece of art here. Stand by, folks. Oh, I think you're talking about this one, right? right here. The lady, what was it? The lady with the crying makeup and the poofy feather dress. I think that's this one. That adventure is, yeah, Wages of Vice. Yeah, this is all new. This is a whole new campaign setting. This whole area, none of this is pre. They're not pulling, and even Ajit said he's like, obviously, was I thinking, he has like obviously, Sigil, Planescape, and stuff was on my mind writing this, but that's just because he loves that setting so much. But this is 100% original content here. Nothing is like, we're not taking a world or a section or something and just updating it to 5e. This is all new content, which, to be honest, in my opinion, is what 5e really needs, because things like Spelljammer, and I hate to say it for everybody who's excited for Spelljammer, I don't think it's going to live up to the hype, because something like Spelljammer achieved meme status about, like, it's a meme, when is Spelljammer going to happen? Like, once you've hit that status, I feel like it's too late to put it out, because it's not going to reach the hype that people want it to. So I think the new content, the new campaign settings, all this stuff, I think that is going to be where the stuff that's really going to blow people out of the water when it comes to new content for 5e. So John David, is this a one-off book, or do you think we'll see other things? So that was something I wish I had asked Ajit in the interview, but I asked him that after the fact. Like, if this does really well and they say, we want more Radiant Citadel, one, would you do it? And two, what would you do? He said, yes, he absolutely would. And he would like to give it, if he had the opportunity to choose, he would like to give it what he called the Eberron treatment. And along the lines of Eberron rising from the last war, make a true campaign setting for the Radiant Citadel, with lore and history, subclasses, magic items, really all that kind of stuff. I think that would be really cool. I hope we get to see that. Is it more of a hub for the ethereal slash? It is a hub world, and it has a sort of, like, crystals are a big portion of it, and they kind of allow you to traverse to the sub kind of realms or locales. But you could obviously set it wherever you want. Is Planescape or Dark Sun coming to 5e? I don't think so. But I mean, well, you could see, maybe, right? We gotta get past Dragonlance first. So Clyde brings up a good point, right? A book without player options is a book I don't need to buy. Yeah, I feel like that's why so many of the DM adventure books, campaign settings, have player options to force players to buy them. Let's see. From 1 extremely good to 10 extremely bad, how would you rate the adventures? Well, I think you have to take each adventure individually. But from what I've read and seen so far, I'd give it like I mean, some may be better than others, and I haven't read all of them, so I can't give you a true. But just based on what I've seen by flipping, I'd say a solid 7, if not higher than that, based on, once I read through all of them. Like I said, some may stand out better than others. How's the book overall? I think it's really good. I think it's a very well written passion project by a lot of people with a lot of love for the game, and a love for kind of instilling their own personal experiences and their own culture and things into a story. And realistically, I think that's really probably what just about everybody does. I know that's what I do when I homebrew stuff and make, like, world build. I use people that I know and, like, my life experiences to kind of mold and shape the worlds that I build. Like, one of the main things that I did in my homebrew campaign is most of the cities were based on people I know. I would, like, take some sort of either anagram or parts of their name or something like that and use that to inform one of the cities, and then based on that person and their personality and the way they are, I would use the way that I perceive it, and like maybe if there's a funny joke we had or some sort of thing, and that informs the way the city works. Whether that could be something, it's just like the kind of festivals they have in the city, or the kind of food they have, or the type of goods they sell. And I think that that's a really fun way to do it. And it's very clear. And even, Ajit mentioned that some people you can see like, oh, they're writing their sister in here, or the food that they loved growing up is a part of this adventure because it was such a great part of their experience. So I think that's awesome. Planescape is almost as requested as Spelljammer. I don't think so. I think Spelljammer had it beat, but Planescape isn't far behind. But Dark Sun's right up there too, and I don't know. Um, let's see. Now I just want a book with all the extra planar cities at war. That'd be awesome, right? Like a war. Like, I mean, this is, I don't know how it would look, but I mean, I always love. I mean, I personally like. I haven't been too tarnished by all of the love for the multiverse concept and worlds fighting worlds that we've seen, and all of kind of becoming up like sort of the the pop culture stigma right now of worlds overlapping and multiverse and all that kind of stuff. I enjoy that. I haven't become jaded on it, even though it's become basically all of the different kinds of shows and things I watch. They seem to be going down that route. But a concept of like a mass war with like, yeah, you've got Sigil at war, you got the Radiant Citadel at war, you've got, I don't know, whatever other kind of realms you want to set up. You could throw spell jamming in there too. That was one of the things that I liked about the older editions that they kind of did, and it was just like a in lore way to go about it. It obviously happened very heavily with the Forgotten Realms more than anything else. Was when they were going to transition to an edition, like the next edition, they would write like an in-universe event, and there would be a bunch of novels around it, and it would kind of like explain why things were changing, whether that was like because the magic system was going to shift and we were going to have more magic or less magic or something like that. They'd write an in-universe story explaining why whatever that event, that's why the Sundering and the Spell Plague and all these things from the Forgotten Realms exist, was basically to show transitions from one edition to the next. And I would love if we had some like massive multiversal, multi-city spelljammy space war, and that's how we talk about the transition from whatever we have now in 5e to 2024. I think that'd be really awesome. Isn't there drama going on with Dragonlance and WotC? Not. No, they solved the lawsuits months, if not years ago at this point. I covered it pretty extensively on the channel. You can go back, just type in Dragonlance in like the Nerd Immersion search bar, or type in Dragonlance Nerd Immersion, and you'll see. Yeah, the Hickmans levied, and I think Margaret Weiss too. They levied a lawsuit against Wizards of the Coast. Again, this is years ago, so I'm just paraphrasing. But basically, they'd hired them as a contract to write a new trilogy of books. And for one reason or another, WotC was trying to basically back out of that contract. And they said, well, you didn't pay us, so we're going to sue you. And the lawsuit was levied. And then it kind of went quiet for a while. And then it basically they like gave up on the lawsuit. Everything was good. And then the Dragonlance book 1 of the new trilogy comes out in a month, maybe even less than that. Yeah, John David, you bring up a good point. I think diversity in D&D is a good call. I think even on the highest level, which I think is really cool, is that Ajit, the co-lead of this book, doesn't work for Wizards of the Coast. He's not in WotC's pocket. I think that is some of the best stuff we have, is bringing people outside. So like Wizards of the Coast's design team and all of those folks, it's a small team. It's obviously been growing almost exponentially as 5e has continued to grow and Hasbro has continued to see the benefits and the profit margins associated with Dungeons and Dragons. They've been pumping a ton of money into WotC to allow them to hire a whole bunch of people, which is good because it allows more people to work on more things, so not everybody else is so stressed. But when you have the same group of people working on the same stuff all the time, I'm not gonna I don't necessarily think it's gotten stagnant or like you're seeing similarities there. But it's bound to happen, right? If you and I make a novel, or we write a video game series or something, and we continue to, it's just you and I, and we just continue to make the games over and over in our same world, we're gonna want to keep touching back on things, bringing in same characters, doing all these kinds of things just because it's what's easy for us. So it's good to have new blood in there to write new content. And for the first time in an unprecedented move, we have a co-lead on a book, this book, who has absolutely nothing to do with Wizards of the Coast other than he wrote a little bit of the stuff for Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft, and then he took the opportunity to reach out to like Chris Perkins and Jeremy Crawford himself and said, "Hey, I have an idea for a new book. What do you think?" And he pitched them the Radiant Citadel. They weren't expecting it. They weren't planning on it. He pitched them this book, and they're like, "That sounds great. Let's do it." So if anything, that speaks to the quality of this guy's work, saying like, out of the blue, "Hey, what do you guys think about this?" They're like, "Absolutely, let's do it. You're the co-lead, even though you don't work for us." I think that's really awesome. I think that in and of itself is just adding that much more fresh blood, new ideas to the mix. And I hope we get to see more stuff like this in the future, where we see more people involved that are external. But I also feel like they should be better credited. So, like, Ajit, I think it's very clear, right? He's been on the interviews, he's been in all these things, people have seen his name pop up, so they kind of know. But, like, Pendleton Ward, the creator of Adventure Time, helped write Tomb of Annihilation, and I don't feel like that was a very well-known thing. Like, it was alluded to that he was working on something, and I thought maybe we were going to get, like, a weird, wacky Adventure Time style D&D thing, but I think he was just ended up being resolved to, like, a credit in Tomb of Annihilation, and that's it. But there was like no more about it. Do you think this has a potential to launch into the realm of memorable campaign settings, or are we going to forget this book other than in academic conversations in a year? So it's interesting that Ajit said that there's metrics that show that when WotC's been putting out, depending on what it is, like some of these other campaign settings, like revisiting classic content, like Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft, for example, like it gets a spike of interest at the start, but then the interest in those books drops off massively because, and I think I call it the Diablo 3 paradigm, which is which I use as a reference of when something has been wanted for so long and it takes forever and it finally comes out, it will never live up to the hype, and ultimately no one cares. I loved Diablo 2. I sunk so many hours into Diablo 2. And Diablo 3 took forever to come out. And there wasn't even like a lot of hype build up to it. Like I felt like by the time we were in like alphas to launch, it was a very short window. And I played it and I was like, nah, I'm good. I had no desire to go back and play it anymore than the time I spent in like either the alpha or the beta. And that's how I feel like if you continue to try to bring back classic campaign settings, we're in a different, regardless of how people feel, we are in a fundamentally different world. And all the adventures that we have and everything that we've ever written, fiction in general, goes in cycles, and it's kind of based around the world that we live in. So if you think about classic D&D campaign settings, the stuff that Gygax wrote, Greyhawk, The Forgotten Realms, they're very heavily based in like Tolkienian classic fantasy, high fantasy, because that was sort of the popular thing when they were kids writing, or like as far as the fantasy culture and things of that nature when they were writing it, before gaming became a lot more mainstream like it is now. Then you think about the mid 2000s, right? When Keith Baker wrote Eberron. That was right around the start of steampunk becoming a popular thing. And what is Eberron? Steampunk, right? Then you start seeing what's going on. I mean, even the Radiant Citadel is like, it was written during a pandemic. So he describes the book as like hope punk and solar punk. So it's kind of a different concept there. But now, whatever's written in the future I don't know what it's going to be. It's going to be the product of whatever the future brings. But I think we're already past cyberpunk, so I really don't know what it's going to be. But the fact that we're in whatever that world culture is, a Gen Z time frame of culture and the world, writing in that time frame is never going to equate to what you were used to, right? So writing in this time frame now or in the next 2 or 3, 5, 10 years, if you decide to bring back Dark Sun or Spelljammer, oh, I mean, obviously we're doing that anyway, but Planescape, whatever, in this current time frame, the way you write adventures and campaigns and everything, the way the world is when you write it now, it will never be what it was when it was originally written. Therefore, it will never be the same. And that's what happens the longer you let things lead before you release something new. And that's just kind of the way things work. So things are gonna be different. So I, I don't know. I think Radiant Citadel has, to go back to the original point, has the potential to be something we continue to talk about, because I do think, I'll come out and say it, I think it's the best anthology book we've had thus far in 5th edition, bar none, right? I think it beats the pants off of Candlekeep by a long shot. Tales from the Yawning Portal was the OG, but all they did with that was recycle classic adventures, things against the Giants, Sunless Citadel, stuff like that. That it was just rehashing things, and people have their thoughts about those as well. But I remember, like, some of these things were standalone products, Sunless Citadel and others, whereas now you kind of consolidated them all, shrunk them down, and included them in an anthology book. I think this has the potential to be something that has continued to be talked about. I think the concept that you built it as a hub world makes it very easy to homebrew your own sub crystal worlds to go to. I think that's a really good kind of having that as an option makes it very easy. You can make a world, and then honestly, if you don't like that world, you could eventually have that world collapse and then go back to the Radiant Citadel and work on something else. You could eventually tie your homebrew world to the Radiant Citadel if you need to expand things out beyond what you've currently worked up, or you want to add a little bit more mysticism, planar stuff to it. I think it has a lot of options. So I can't say whether we'll continue to talk about it. I can say it has an extremely unfortunate release timing because it came between Monsters of the Multiverse and Spelljammer. It's probably the worst time frame to be released in, because you are going to be, and that's, I think, part of the problem is the marketing for this has been unfortunately swamped by Monsters of the Multiverse, and Spelljammer are getting a lot of hype because they're a big monster stat block book and the meme that is Spelljammer. And then you put this book in the middle, not to mention the fact that it got delayed a month. As you get once even closer to Spelljammer's release, marketing is gonna want to ramp up for Spelljammer, but you can't just leave this book in the lurch. They started doing more now, but it's basically right as the book releases. This would have been nice to have more snippets and interviews and things like that along the way to keep this in people's minds. So that's the biggest way I could see us possibly losing sight of this book, is because of its timing and where it released. Which culture is Wages of Sins based in? I think it's South American Carnival, but I have no clue. Yeah, it doesn't really give you Wages of Vice, I think is what it's called. I don't think it tells you what the it doesn't really tell you what it's based on, as far as like the culture. So I don't want to guess at it because I don't want to be wrong. And that just doesn't seem like a thing that I would want to guess at. Yeah, I can't tell. Obviously, you kind of saw that one thing, right? It says Divas attack the crowd at the Thornapple during their March of Vice performance. It kind of has a carnival vibe just from the artwork, but yeah, I'm not familiar enough to make a judgment call. Do the adventures come with maps, or do they expect DMs to fill in the gaps? No, they do have like regional maps for it. Some of them even have battle maps. Actually, it seems like almost all of them do. So you should be good there. How's the level 5 adventure? Which one's the level 5 adventure? Level 5 is Wages of Vice. A murderer stalks the streets during a raucous festival. I haven't really read through it too much, but the artwork looks really good. I don't think that one has. That is one of the ones that does not have a standalone monster for it. So that sways you either way. Realm shaking event books were always fun to read. Agreed. Does the book state anywhere which real world culture inspired each civilization? I don't think it does. Maybe it does somewhere in the beginning. But yeah, I don't know if it does. I don't see anything stating that. So no, I don't believe so. Are D&D anthology books becoming more frequent? I don't think so. We've had 3 in all of this time. And it also is going to be based largely on sales, right? WotC's a company. If anthology books start outselling campaign guides, we'll probably see more anthology books. Right, exactly. Camel Wars. As long as it doesn't compromise the quality of the books, I don't care who writes the books. As long as the books are good. I just want the books to be good. I see people come. I'm scrolling down through the chat. I see people catching on to the Pendleton Ward thing. Yeah. Again, my point exactly. Nobody knew that he did that. So, yeah, the Half-Life paradox, another great example, right? Kingdom Hearts 3 was like that. Werewolf the Mall was my best character. Yeah, I was a werebear with a mall, D2 for sure. Problem is, WotC releases a new setting, but then doesn't support it with new adventures in the setting. They rely on third parties on the DM's Guild. I will agree with you, Cranky Smurf, 100%. I think they're missing, and this is we're talking money, right? This is a real deal. You could do, and like they kind of have done it a couple times, but it's weird, right? They did it with Wild Beyond the Witchlight, where they released Wild Beyond the Witchlight. It's an adventure, but it does have some character stuff in it. The races more than anything. But then they released that PDF on the DM's Guild. That was what everybody wanted anyway, which was basically the Feywild campaign setting, right? Like, how do you run a game in the Feywild? What happens in the Feywild? It was like the Domains of Delight or whatever it was called. That PDF, right? That was like an interesting concept, and I don't know if it was a pilot to see if they would do it again or what the plan was. But think about it, right? They even had a line in the book. There's a big picture of the spider reading a book to people, and it says the yarn spinner is a character that you can learn more about, and this is the text written in the bottom of the book. The yarn spinner is a character you can learn more about if you buy the Domains of Delight, available now on the DM's Guild, or something to that effect. That's a real way you could go about this. Release a campaign setting. I've been saying this for a while. Stop doing this. Include the level 1 to 5 adventure, the little intro adventure, blah, 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 in the back half of your campaign setting. Pull that shit out. Give me another 20 some odd pages worth of campaign setting, campaign guide material. And then have the adventure as a standalone thing that you can buy from WotC via D&D Beyond or the DM's Guild in a PDF form. Okay? You do that. Then the people who only want the adventure for the sake of having the adventure can buy it. And then the people who only want the campaign setting for the stuff, either the campaign setting, the lore, or the book stuff, the crunchy stats stuff, the subclasses, the feats, whatever, include that in the book. If you'd be smart, if you did it that way, because more people will buy the crunchy statistical option stuff in the book form, then will likely end up buying the adventure. I get what you're trying to do. You're trying to have the best of both worlds. Let's make it be a campaign setting, but we'll include character options. Let's make it be an adventure, but we'll include character options. when you include character options, you increase the chance of everybody buying this book, right? Somebody said it earlier on. This is a DM's book. This is an anthology adventure for DMs to run an adventure. I don't want to buy it because it doesn't have any reason for me to buy it. Now, if this had a new subclass or a new race in it, or both, chances are 10 times more people would buy this. Whatever the ratio is from DMs to players, more people would buy it, more than likely. So if you were to start doing campaign settings as a book that has the lore, but also the crunchy statistical piece, and then release the PDF as the adventure separately on the DM's Guild and D&D Beyond, now Roll22, I guess, that would be huge. You could potentially get people who are going to buy both, but you could also guarantee people who want the book will just go buy the book because it's got more options and stuff in it. I think that would be your better call, but I don't see them doing that anytime soon. What a Greyhawk source book. Arcane Punk next. Mark my words. I think 5e has had the Scooby-Doo treatment for a few books now. Pre-ordered Spelljammer. Radiant Citadel's honestly revitalized my love for D&D. You go back and watch my original video on Radiant Citadel. I was very hard on it. Like, I was very much like, oh god, an anthology book. Like, forget this, it's garbage. And the more I learned about the process and the people behind it, the more I was like, wow, there's anthology. I shit on Candlekeep real hard. And I stand by my criticisms. And this one, I basically was coloring my opinion of this one based purely on Candlekeep when I heard of anthology adventure. And the more I learn about this, the process, the time, the effort put into it, the more I'm like, okay, if all of the books were made like this, for example, Aja told me when he did Ravenloft, right? Like, there was basically little to no collaboration work between the folks, whereas he encouraged that in the Radiant Citadel, that the authors peer review each other's stuff, look at each other's things, so you can have like little callbacks to other areas or little things to have, like, for those who really read through it, you can see that there's connections possibly between some of the adventures. He said it has to be an anthology, so you can't have it be directly connected, or you'd need to read everything to get it. But for those who do read everything, you'll maybe get a little bit more out of it. And again, encourage those sort of jams, like game design jams between everybody to work together. And then again, like I said, he built the hub world after all the adventures were written, whereas I get the feeling that Candlekeep was done entirely in silos, where, like, I write my adventure, you write your adventure, everything is separate from everything else, and there was no collaboration. I could be wrong, but that's the vibe that I get. Is there a Polynesian-themed adventure in the setting? That I'm not sure of. I think Spelljammer is more mechanics than adventure. It's 3 64-page books. One is a bestiary, whatever you want to call it. The other one is all of the player options and the mechanics. And then the third one is the 5 to 8 adventure. Level 5 to 8, mind you. The shortest hardcover adventure ever written. 3 levels. Okay? So I think that you could have combined these all together and you would have had like a 180-page book. This book is 220 pages. So there's 40 pages missing from like a standard D&D book. I mean, Eberron was something like almost like 300 pages. So there's at least 40 to 60 pages not included in Spelljammer somewhere, that like as far as traditional page counts go. So if you're gonna, it just makes me feel bad that we know there's gonna be at least 6 new races, as well as new feats, spells, and magic items, and all of the Spelljammer space mechanics, and that's all in one 64-page book. I don't know. I don't know. They should have held off on Spelljammer. Yeah, agreed. Van Richten was the gothic horror that added a new genre. Vampire the Masquerade, VTM. Okay, I love the idea of starting a campaign in a hub world that completely crumbles and is destroyed, then launching off from the Citadel. Yeah, definitely. And there's lore and stuff that exists in the history of the Radiant Citadel that like the whatever it is, the 13 kind of worlds or families or whatever they were are the ones that exist, but there were others that were lost. There's actually some pretty good Radiant Citadel lore there that you could obviously come up with them, build your own, and have it be one of these kind of lost cities or things of that nature. Oh, thank you, Victor. Appreciate it. How many new monsters are there? I think we said 11. I'd rather have soft cover adventure modules too. Yeah, agreed. Um, did anything in the book surprise me? Yeah, some of the monsters definitely surprised me, and that the final adventure takes you to the far realm. No new character options that we've seen so far, and I don't believe there is. I do feel like a background, maybe backgrounds could have been something included in this book. Obviously, they were going for pure anthology stuff, but I do feel like backgrounds don't take up too much space text-wise. And I think possibly having backgrounds tied to the different regions, or at least being like, I don't know what you would even call it, like a Radiant Citadel employee, like person you live in the Citadel, Citadelite, whatever you would call them. I think like that could have been an interesting background. Even if you don't play in the Radiant Citadel, but you went somewhere, but you grew up there, like that would be a cool thing. So I think backgrounds would have been a simple player option you could have included in this book. It's the older adventure books versus the half and half. Yeah, agreed. Binder books would be an. We kind of see a little bit of the binder concept with the monstrous compendium, but yeah, agreed. I hate WotC including DM centric stuff in adventures like the naval ship stuff and Ghost of Saltmarsh. Yeah, again, yeah, you're kind of doing this thing where you're. I guess Ghost of Saltmarsh is technically an anthology adventure. I always forget about that. Few backgrounds and a subclass or feat in every damn book, damn setting book would be so much better. Well, again, and Darius, it goes both ways. Are you going to have player options in every book, or are there going to be books for just DMs for adventures? I think you need to. This is something, if WotC's listening, in 2024, can we make it uniform? I don't care what it is, but make it uniform, right? Do all books have player options? Are there books purely for DMs and books purely for players? I don't like the hybrid, but I also don't like how we don't seem to know what we want to do, right? You look at things like Theros and all the Magic the Gathering campaigns, they're a campaign setting with a small adventure and a whole bunch of character options. Then you get Ravenloft, which doesn't really have a ton of full-blown adventures, but has a couple of race options and a couple character classes. So it was kind of going that route. But then you get something like Wild Beyond the Witchlight, which is an adventure that gives you 2 races. Then you get Strixhaven, which is basically a hybrid of both, doesn't really know what it wants to be. Just make it transparent. I've been asking for transparency from Wizards of the Coast for years. That's why I still don't understand how we can't have a D&D roadmap that just tells us, like, book release 1, January 2023. Book release 2, March 2023. Give us that at the very least. Transparency is all we're asking for. I know it's not legally, but I wish they will eventually give rules on ascending to godhood. Yeah, I don't see epic campaign stuff becoming a thing, but maybe because more people are playing the game, maybe there's more interest in high level play. I know I have it. I like running games all the way to the end if I can do it. A warlock subclass about the incarnates would have been awesome. Agreed. I'm sure we'll see something on the DM's Guild about it if we, once it launches there. Didn't the Ascending to Gods bookmark the end of 3.5? I remember reading it. Yeah. I mean, well, they had, epic level stuff. I mean, basically level 20 characters could almost be gods in 3.5, let alone going all the way to 30. Someone's asking about the incarnates. They are, I'll get you the information here, right? They're really cool. Like, here's the ruby pangolin. They're all themed around, like, crystals and gemstones. As a geologist, I am quite interested in them. So let's get to the incarnates. I'll read a little bit about them. All right, the incarnates. Keepers of vast wisdom from distant lands, the incarnates are a collection of spirits bound within gemstones. Each of an incarnate's components, gemstones, holds a spirit from the same land on the material plane. These might be nature spirits from a particular place or the spirits of individuals who once dwelled there. Upon forming, an incarnate manifests a unique personality and identity, a gestalt of its constituents and their shared background. The greater the number of spirits that make up an incarnate, the broader and deeper both its personality and its knowledge are. Most incarnates are small, no more than a handful of gems in the shape of a plant or an animal. The least of them originate from spirits lost on the ethereal plane and are tiny collections of wayward spirits of similar origins and with nowhere else to go. The largest and most influential are those of the 15 founding civilizations, collectively known as the Dawn Incarnates. Spanning more than a dozen feet in height, these incarnates are composed of thousands of smaller gems of the same type. Each holds court in a portion of the preserve, such as the Amethyst Tiger's Knoll or the Obsidian Eagle's Eyrie. The Dawn Incarnates have existed since the creation of the Radiant Citadel. While the Citadel's creators left behind no text, it's believed that their collective wisdom is held by the Dawn Incarnates. The Dawn Incarnates know everything that transpires in the preserve of the ancestors, which is why they require the speakers of the ancestors to meet there. While they do not interfere with the day-to-day administration of the city, they hold these speakers responsible to the duties of their office. While the Dawn Incarnate has never removed a speaker for the ancestors, it is believed they could do so if pleased, or if displeased, rather. Each incarnate has a unique amalgamated personality. Most who interact with an incarnate encounter with its primary identity. And then I'll just give you the list of them, right? So we have we have a turquoise lion, a yellow quartz kapuk tree, serpentine banyan tree, water opal saltwater salamander, jasper pecan tree, fire opal. Oh boy. Zolitz, I can't even pronounce it. I don't know. Amber scorpion, moonstone water lily, ruby pangolin, sard elephant, obsidian eagle, pearl carp, amethyst tiger, white jade flowering pear tree, and bastite caiman. So, very cool stuff. I like them, and the art is awesome. Like, here's the amber scorpion, the amethyst tiger. I think we have art of all of them, which is also kind of a bummer. Yeah, you could have been good with classes. Like I said, I hope that this does well, and that's largely on all of you going out and picking up a copy of this book. I think if this does well, I know, like I said, Ajit is more than willing to take this to give it what you guys want, a campaign setting, a full-blown campaign setting with subclasses, feats, magic items, and so on. And I think if it does well, I think we stand a chance for that to be an option. And Ajit already told me if they don't want him to come back to be the person to lead that book, if they decide to do it, he's not too proud. He would just love for it to be made. So he would take a step down if they didn't want him to run it. Hitting level 20 is something we got already. Does this book actually feel like it's in the ethereal plane or just a standard city with extra planar Cheeto dust on its fingers? I think it does a decent job of going for the extra planar bit. Spelljammer is going to be Watson's biggest disappointment. Potentially. Let's see. Can you say hi to my wife, Elizabeth? Hi, Malcolm Hazel's wife, Elizabeth. How you doing? Hope you're having a great night or morning, depending on where you live. Radiant Citadel could work in Eberron as a protected shard. Yeah, well, that's, I said, all of the adventures, the communities in here, they all have a way to work them in either as the Radiant Citadel or as a section of the Forgotten Realms or as something in Eberron, which is very cool. So they right there have the option to show how you could integrate these if you wanted to run them as standalone adventures in your campaign rather than having to run them through the Radiant Citadel, but there's options for that as well. The last one, if I could run any adventure at my table, would absolutely be the last one. Which is called, I keep forgetting it when I read it, Orchids of the Invisible Mountain. Will we see a 5.5, or do you think they will just keep pumping? No, we absolutely will see something new in 2024. They've already said that. We're going to see something, whether it's 5.5 or 6. And again, the only thing that I've heard in rumblings and rumors through the grapevine and, is that it won't have an open game license, in that they're going to make you they won't allow third parties to make content in their new space like they do currently. Like, Matt Koval's stuff Cobalt Press, all those rely on the open game license, allowing you to make and profit off of these things. 5e is the most successful version of Dungeons and Dragons by far. And part of it, I think, is also because of the open game license and allowing that to happen. And I think if you don't do that, I mean, that was one of the biggest issues with 4th edition, is 4th edition did not have an open gaming license. We all know it didn't do very great, and it led to the development of Pathfinder. So, because of the changes they made, for those of you who don't know, Paizo was working for Wizards of the Coast, developing content for Dungeons and Dragons in the 3.3.5 days. And then nobody liked the direction 4th edition went, so they used the open game license for 3 and 3.5 to develop Pathfinder. So, you know, I think you could possibly be shooting yourself in the foot by not doing an open gaming license. But what they'll end up doing is say, well, you can use the DM's Guild to publish things where we get 50% of all the profits. I mean, Bugman, Monkeys, Hippos, blah, blah, blah. I think the hybrid books sell better. Yeah, it's, again, the model is tricky, but the Dawn Incarnates are very cool, for sure. Let's see. 5 is absolutely pretty bad with high-level play. Yeah, 5e, well, that's why they stopped. If you notice that a lot of the... Once WotC started writing the adventures, so I'll give you this history lesson, too. If you didn't know, Tyranny of Dragons was written by Cobalt Press. Sasquatch Games wrote Princess of the Apocalypse, I think, and Green Ronin Games wrote Out of the Abyss. Those were the first 3 adventures for 5th edition, and they all ended at around level 15 or 16. And then everything pretty much WotC's written since then ends at around 10th level on average. And I think that's truly because WotC didn't balance 5th edition for levels past... They balanced it good to about 10th level. And then they didn't really focus too much beyond 10th level. And I think it's very clearly shows, depending on what you look at. So I think that that's a problem, and that's why we don't get high-level stuff, because they're aware that it's not very well balanced. I do sincerely hope that 2024 will bring better balance to high-level play to then further allow us to run content, to run games and things at higher levels and have them be, well run. Okay. Nope, I lost you guys. Hang on. Well, Monsters and Multiverse just for the 40 rages, 40 pages, yeah. For the new races, yeah, exactly. No updated OGL in 2024 is a horrible decision. How about the fact that the OGL hasn't been updated to include the Artificer? Right? You can't write stuff for the Artificer. I can't believe how many times I have to tell people when they're like, why doesn't anybody in any of their Kickstarters write new subclasses for the Artificer? Well, they legally can't. The OGL was updated once in, 2015. There was a 2014 version, and then they updated it. And I think, they didn't even have Eldritch Blast. Wasn't even an option on the original OGL. So, a Warlock... You couldn't write a Warlock subclass in which they could have access to Eldritch Blast or Eldritch Blast couldn't be used because it wasn't part of the original OGL. But, I mean, I understand that when they had originally made their call that they said they weren't going to do any new level 1 to 20 classes ever unless it was something that specifically the adventure called for it, which was the line I was fed directly from Jeremy Crawford in 2019, was that they were going to include the Artificer in Eberron because the Eberron needs the Artificer, and it was going to be its own thing, and that's the only reason it was included. A new level 1 to 20 class was because it was something you specifically needed because it's so integral in the identity of Eberron. And I get that. That makes sense. And then they ended up making it a full-blown thing where they put it in Tasha's and now it's a base class, but they haven't updated the OGL to include it so that nobody can write and profit other than on the DM's Guild off of anything Artificer-based. Correct. I am full in agreement that the OGL is part of what made 5e so popular because of the huge bloom of third-party creators. But like I said, if you look at it from a business standpoint, how many $1 million plus Kickstarters have we seen for 5th edition OGL based content? I mean, just look at anything done by Ghostfire Games or Matt Colville or any of that. And there's, you're looking at millions of dollars worth of content. And the WotC could just look at that and be like, we could have gotten a portion of that, at least half of it, if we forced people to use the DMs Guild to put that stuff out. If you were sat in the creator's seat by WotC and asked for a new idea / realm / campaign other product for 5e, what would be your pitch? That's a good one. I actually asked Ajit that, and I said, what would you want to see? And his answer was Planescape and Dark Sun, which was kind of, I did not expect that. But if I was to come up with something brand new for 5e, that's I actually don't really know what I would do. And that's the hard part, and that's why I'm excited to see what we'll get in the form of new campaign stuff from WotC, because I don't know what they're going to do either, because I think they're strapped for creative concepts here, right? Like, what are you going to do that's going to be something, if you're going to make a brand new campaign setting, what are you going to do? What are you going to include? What options are there? What do you have stewing around that you can come up with? It's tricky, right? So you could obviously you could go the modern route, but I don't think that works well with 5th edition, like a D20 modern, like a futuristic like cyberpunk style stuff. I don't think that works. I'm not really sure what hasn't been tapped, I mean, you could obviously do local, like regional things, right? We've covered the jungle, right? In 2 of Annihilation. We've covered the Arctic in Rime of the Frost Maiden. So maybe a desert themed adventure to cover, another locale we haven't seen. But if they ask me for a new product, I would say another Dungeon Master, like a Dungeon Master's Guide 2 that has, rather than like, they don't do a good job in 5e, I feel, of providing tools to teach you how to do things. There's like, they started to do it in the original Dungeon Master's Guide, where they give you a little bit of background about how to like create your own race or create your own subclass. But I would like more stuff that is detailed ways of like, here's how we would say to go about creating X, Y, or Z, your own magic item. Let's say, here's some examples, here's some ways you'd go about it. I think a DMG2 could go a long way with actual DM tools, not adventures, just a book of DM options. Even if it's just like rolling tables, dungeon creator, stuff like that. Like a good one. I know there is one in the Dungeon Master's Guide, but still. I bought, where did it say? I saw somebody say I bought, where is it? I bought Baldur's Gate Descent to Avernus and Waterdeep Dragon's Heist just for the info on the cities. Yep. Yeah, I'd say it's worth it. They can restrict where you can publish things if they don't update. If the new edition that comes out in 2024 does not have an open game license, you will not be able to use that new content in any form. And we know it's going to basically be the Player's Handbook, Monster Manual, and Dungeon Master's Guide. That's what they're going to reprint in 2024, which means if they come up with new options, new classes, new base features for any of those things, you won't be able to use them. Baldur's Gate 3 is licensed, but then the developer homebrews a lot of the rules. What a waste of a license. Well, I talked to the folks at Larian. I'm wearing a Larian Studios shirt, actually, now that you bring up Baldur's Gate 3. There's some options that don't really translate well to the mechanics of a game, so you have to. And honestly, I like a lot of the stuff that they've done. I think they've done more to make the Ranger more interesting and make Marshals more fun in Baldur's Gate 3 than WotC has done in 5 years. So I think Baldur's Gate 3, the team at Larian has, I think, a pretty good head on their shoulders, all things considered. So WotC Hasbro just getting greedy and giving the middle finger to the community. Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me, Jordan. I would not be surprised. Yeah, Frog God Games, another Nord Games, all great third-party content or creators. Yeah, modern was something that like came to my mind as something that like would be different, but yeah, they'll probably end up doing more Magic the Gathering settings. But I think they'd have to be different enough, right? That's the trick. If you're gonna do something, it can't be something too similar to what you've already done. Yeah, Eberron's Arcana punk, steampunk stuff, sure. Yeah. Well, that's why they're coming out with the new starter set, right? End of the month. You said they do a great job of teaching how to DM. Agreed. Hmm. I've seen a lot of reference to Kamigawa. People really want that to be in the new setting, possibly. That could be interesting. So, Noxious Toxland, how different do we expect 5.5e to be? I don't know. They're saying it has to be backwards compatible, so how different can it truly be, right? That's the question, right? How can it be backwards compatible and also be new? What I think we're fundamentally going to see is if you look at all of the updates that they did to all of the races, the monster stat blocks in Monsters of the Multiverse, it's going to be that for the three core books, right? It's going to be you have a race that gives you spell casting. You can cast those spells with any spell slots you have, right? The way the stat blocks have shifted for all the monsters and Monsters of the Multiverse, the monster manual monsters are going to have the same thing. Feats are going to be handled if they end up doing whatever they're doing with this background concept of a background gives you more feats or things like that. That'll be in the player's handbook. It might be different wordings on the way spells are possibly tweaked or handled, maybe different armor options. Um, I don't know. That's what I envision. Anything that we said is really good that they've done recently, that why don't they go back and put it like do the same treatment for the player's handbook? They're waiting, I think, for 2024 to do that. They could publish an open game license later if they realize I made a mistake. That is an option. They didn't do it for fourth edition. They just made fifth edition. But you never know. Favorite new monster is the lava axolotl creature. Yeah, the chart short rest versus short rest to proficiency bonus times per long rest. That would be a thing we'll probably see. Um, no player options in this book. Alt options similar to Tasha's, yeah. I could bring back anything from previous editions, all the way back to OSR. What would I bring back and why? Um, it doesn't really fit with the way fifth edition is designed, but I think prestige classes would be something I'd want to bring back. So for those of you who don't know, we didn't have subclasses back in the day. We had a thing that was called prestige classes. And again, I'm referencing third edition because that's what I know the best. So we had a lot more base classes too. Like a lot of the things that you know as subclasses nowadays were actually base classes, right? Samurai, Hexblade, things like that were all base classes, level 1 to 20 classes. And then the way you would sort of specialize is you would go into a prestige class. And there were a lot of it opened up the options insanely, right? Because the way a prestige class worked is it had prerequisites, a couple of different things you needed to do to be able to enter into that prestige class. And then it would give you options. Some prestige classes could be 10 levels long, some of them could be 3 levels long. It depended. And you could take multiple if you wanted, if you could swing the requirements. Some of them would do things like progress your spellcasting level. So if you were like, in 5th edition terms, it would be like if you were a 10th level druid and you had a 3-level prestige class that progressed your spells, you basically have the spellcasting abilities of a 13th level druid while getting the benefits of the prestige class. And it allowed you such versatility and customizability because if you took certain things from your feat or certain things from your race, you could maybe get access to something. You could be like a fighter, but get access to all this cool other magical type stuff. Or like you could maybe be a wizard with an animal companion from the animal companion based subclass or prestige class rather. I think like they did away with the concept of prestige classes in favor of the subclass system because it's simpler. And I respect that. I think it's a very clean, new player friendly way. It's easy to explain if you want to get people up to speed and they don't know. But I think as time has gone on, 5th edition has continued to grow, but so have the players of 5th edition. And that's why we're starting to see more complexity, right? The fact that feats are an optional rule speaks to this, right? Feats are technically an option that you don't have to allow, right? You could say no feats in my games. But now we're seeing things like backgrounds and different things just give you access to feats. I asked Jeremy Crawford in person in 2019 why there was two Unearthed Arcana skills, feats for skills and feats for weapons, I think they were called. And they then end up getting published in any book. And I said, why aren't we doing that? And he said at that point in time, anyway, he didn't reference it as that point in time, but I'm telling you now that their research proved that people weren't interested in feats. So they weren't going to add any more new feats to the game unless they thought it was necessary to provide some sort of option for a given, location, campaign setting, what have you. And their research indicated that people weren't that interested in feats, and most people weren't playing with them anyway, so they weren't going to devote time and effort to making more. Obviously, the thought process has shifted. That same conversation is the one where he told me the Artificer would only exist in Eberron because the Eberron needs the Artificer. That obviously changed too. So just because they did something in one way in the past, it makes me think that like we're seeing the growth of the 5th edition community looking for more complexity, looking for more new things to be able to do. I mean, I covered it on the channel a couple of times. They had tried a prestige class. They had released a rune carver like prestige class for the wizard, or really for anybody, but they released a rune carver, I think it was called a rune master prestige class in early Unearthed Arcana in like 2015, 2016 as an option to see if doing a prestige class could work in 5th edition. They didn't end up going with that. Obviously, they just kind of threw that and left that in the dust. But they also were more willing to try new things back in 2015, 2016 before the big boom of popularity of Dungeons and Dragons, before Critical Role, before Stranger Things. They were more willing to be a little more nimble and try new things. That's why Sword Coast Adventures Guide is like doesn't really know what it wants to be because it was in that time period where things were kind of in flux. That's also why all the pre-written adventures at that time were written by third-party companies, not in-house via WotC, which wasn't changed until Curse of Strahd. So I think that because the community is looking for more complexity in the way they play their game, because they've kind of explored a lot of the base vanilla options, maybe, just maybe, prestige classes have an opportunity to make a comeback. Although I fully don't believe that will happen. I have no doubts that prestige classes are dead and gone, at least for this foreseeable future. Okay. Let's see. More key for the monk. Yeah, I would add proficiency bonus. Monk gets, they get the key points in the level, and then they add their proficiency bonus number to the number of key points they have. I think that's a simple fix. I'd also probably bump the monk up to a D10 hit die. I think that fixes a lot of the problems. Base attack bonus. Yeah, I could see base attack bonus. I think I kind of like where they went in favor of base attack bonus because it works for all classes, but the new way. But I understand what you're saying. Kits in 2e. They even tried the kit concept in 5e too. If you look, there's an Unearthed Arcana that was called Kits of Old. And that led to the development of, I think, the Swords Bard was a kit, originally planned as a kit. They released it in the old UA. The Rune Scribe is a subclass. It's kind of like a sort of like a spiritual successor to the Rune Carver, I think. Yeah, feat trees have made a comeback. That was another thing I asked Jeremy Crawford about the concept of stuff like that, and he's like, "Yeah, it was too complex. We don't want to do that." And now we're getting feat trees, so or feat chains, whatever you want to call them. So who knows? Feel like the tail end of 5e. It basically is, right? Pump out as much content as you can before moving to the new edition. 2 years left, give or take, maybe 3. Yeah, it's basically been confirmed in 2024. We're getting whatever the new Genesis is. We don't know what it's going to be, but what's one thing I'd absolutely want to see in 5.5? Um, absolutely want to see in 5.5. Uh, uh, better equality between the marshals and the casters. Because some have like, so I think I've said it before. I think Paladin is the best martial class. I mean, I know it does have spell casting, but I think Paladin is also one of the best designed classes in 5th edition because it can do a bunch of things and it can do them well. When you look at a Paladin, a D10 half caster, and compared to the Ranger, obviously it's no secret that the Ranger falls short. But like, you look at a Barbarian, Barbarian's really cool, and if you can hit crits, you can do a lot of damage, especially at later levels. But a Paladin can do just as much damage, if not more, with a crit with a smite. Same thing with like a rogue can do that. Monk kind of suffers. They have a lot of attacks, but their attacks don't do a lot of damage. I've played 2 monks and I've played several paladins, so I know. Um, but I would like to see more quality because a lot of the time a spellcaster could sling a spell and it'll outdamage all of it. So a little more equality across the board. I'm not saying you need to bring the casters down, just bring the marshals up. I don't know. A lot of people in the industry are calling it 5.5 or 6. I don't know if that has any bearing on what that actually means, but that's what I've heard. Um, so I don't know. We'll see. Um, there's even a little section, I should say, at the end of the book that takes you, like, if you want to go beyond the Radiant Citadel, like after the stuff has already been run, which is pretty cool. Well, the Hammock of Worlds, that might be a new magic item. Hang on. Nope, maybe not. Oh, this magic item functions as a well of many worlds. But it only connects to one thing. So that's kind of what I was talking about like a magic item that is one existing one with just a small tweak. The Hammock of Worlds, yep. Let me see. I remember there was where is it? Way of the Dragon. You can catch a glimpse of a rare, fortuitous omen, the shadow of a serpentine dragon, like the mythical dragon of heavenly blessings soaring through the clouds. All characters, whether they saw this omen or not, gain the following charm, a type of supernatural gift declared in the DMG, Way of the Dragon. You are as elusive and free as the dragon of heavenly blessings. This charm has 6 charges. As an action, you can expend 1 charge and gain the following benefits. Difficult terrain doesn't cost you extra movement until the end of your next long rest. The next time you end your turn paralyzed or restrained, that condition ends on you. This benefit then ends. After you expend a charge, you can't do so again until you finish a long rest. Once all its charges have been expended, the charm vanishes from you. So that's the closest thing to like a magic item that I've seen is that charm, and that's a limited use thing. Was it a D6 charges? 6 charges, not a D6, just 6. So it's a short term sort of magic item the way the charms in the game typically work. But that one I thought was pretty cool. Would you ever consider working on my own system? I've been in talks with some folks about making a new system, and then there was a lot of headway being made on it, and then it just sort of fell off. So I don't know where it stands, but potentially, I don't think I'd want to make my own edition from scratch. I think I'd rather work with a team to come up with like probably using the 5e open gaming license to use that to jettison into something new. Um, Probably the biggest change with D&D Beyond buy is that your stuff will be updated and the content will be maintained in D&D Beyond. I know for a fact that D&D Beyond has an entire full virtual tabletop ready to roll out, and they've been told they can't do it. And I don't know why. It's basically set to go, and I don't know if that's because WotC's doing some funky thing with Roll20, where they're trying to basically buy everything up, but I'm not sure. Also, I was thinking about maybe doing unrelated, um, going in and doing a live stream of Baldur's Gate 3. I haven't played Baldur's Gate 3 in a while, and they have released several new classes since the last time I played. They released the Sorcerer, Barbarian, and the Bard. Bard was relatively recently, so I thought about maybe streaming some Baldur's Gate 3 just to try out some of the new classes and see. I also like looking at it to see the changes they've made to the way combat and things work because I think there's definitely stuff that can be gleaned from Baldur's Gate 3 to be used in your own campaign. I did that in my Ranger rework that I had done. I had provided options to try to follow along with the Baldur's Gate 3 Ranger, giving those character options, which I thought was pretty cool. Um, I think WotC wants a virtual tabletop, but WotC's also proven time and time again they don't know how to handle this stuff, so they want it. Will they use D&D Beyond to do it, or will they use Roll20 with D&D Beyond official integration in some way? I'm not sure, but I do think we will see a virtual tabletop of some kind from Wizards of the Coast in the next 2 years. Um, I think a D12 hit die is a little too much for a monk. I think it's kind of part of the identity of the barbarian. But I think a D10 hit die works to put it in line with the paladin and the ranger. I think that would work pretty well. Yeah, man. What are we at? 95.2. We're on our way up to 100K. You guys have been awesome. There's been a bunch of you subscribing just tonight here, which is pretty cool. Also, I can't complain about over 100 viewers when it's 3 a.m. Eastern time, and I didn't really give any reference or preface. I don't know. I didn't warn anybody that I was going to do this. I just kind of did it out of nowhere. Best WotC release and worst in your opinion? Uh, Best release? Maybe Xanathar's Guide. I assume we're talking 5e only. Um, yeah, maybe Xanathar's might have been the best. And the worst, I kind of feel like I have to say Sword Coast Adventures Guide at this point. Because they just kind of like, they just abandoned it, basically. My other biggest complaint about the Sword Coast Adventures Guide is it is an unfortunate product of its time of when it was created. But I also don't like that they sampled and brought back several of the subclasses from that book and published them in other books and then left there's like a handful of other subclasses that they just left behind. Yeah, the browser extension for Roll20. Yeah, exactly. I think we might see something like that. Um, yeah, I'm probably gonna I say get some sleep, but realistically I'm probably gonna go play video games for a little while before I go to bed. Um, I'm thinking about probably winding us down here soon as well. Um, but yeah, I had planned to do this last night, but yeah, that electrical fiasco behind my television just turned out to be a huge pain in my ass. So, um, I don't know. I also feel like WotC's looking to form a monopoly, so I wouldn't be surprised, excuse me, if they buy up Roll20. And I also don't think WotC wants their licenses out in the wild anymore. I think D&D Beyond was their biggest user of their license, so they bought D&D Beyond. One Bookshelf is partnering with Roll20. I don't know if that's one Roll20 trying to like isolate or at least buff themselves up a little bit, because I bet you WotC's likely going to buy potentially Roll20 or Fantasy Grounds or both, so they don't have any licenses hanging out in the wild. They'll own all of their own licenses, and in the process get access to 2 virtual tabletops, and then basically own a monopoly on all of the most used platforms. That's what I think was probably going to end up happening. I usually stay up till 2, 3 o'clock in the morning anyway, and get like 6 hours sleep. Um, they're gonna come for 5e tools hard, positive. If it's not down soon, they're gonna nerf it into the ground. They're gonna just destroy it. I can tell. Yeah, so fandom not having it, they're working on the other versions of D&D Beyond, and I think that'll be good. You have them handling it, and then D&D Beyond is D&D Beyond. I've read I have a lot of the original Eberron books, so I've read those. Well, I think Roll20 wants to, like, if they partner with One Bookshelf, who technically works with Wizards of the Coast via DM's Guild, having One Bookshelf and all of that integration and stuff planned makes you potentially worth more in a sale. So when you go to sell yourself or accept the offer from Wizards of the Coast, you're now worth more money. I think what they were trying to get at. That's what I was trying to say. I don't know if that's what they're actually trying to do, but what is your favorite guides or books for ocean adventures? Well, you've obviously got Saltmarsh, but there was an old 3.5 book called Storm Rack, which was your ocean-based adventure. That was pretty good. Yeah, agreed. Fandom, I think, is behind Demiplane, or at least the people who worked at Fandom went to Demiplane. I don't know if they're directly related. I think they'd be stupid to not do an open iteration, D&D, a beta of D&D Next or whatever they're going to call it. I think it's a double-edged sword, right? Your community has grown exponentially since you did the playtest for 5e. If it's grown as much as it has, you'll get a lot more feedback, but are you interested in the feedback, or you just want to make what you want to make? I'd like to see them, especially bring in folks like myself and other content creators to provide feedback and use us as an avenue to talk to the fans and see what they think about this new iteration of Dungeons and Dragons. Do I think that'll happen? Likely not. Mm. Yeah, Orca people in Stormrack. Yep. Hey, 5e conversions will save Paizo. It'll definitely help. Stormrack was a D&D 3.5 book. They had released, there was a series, or maybe it was 3e. It might have been 3rd edition. There was a series of books that they released kind of all around the same time that were sort of adventure. I guess it was technically 3e. They have released Stormrack. They have released, was it Frostburn? I think actually they were right around the changeover, because I think Frostburn is technically 3.5. Stormrack, Frostburn, Cityscape, Dungeonscape, and Sandstorm. They were all a series of books for 3rd edition and 3.5 that were specifically tied to the different like worlds, right? To the different settings. So if I move you guys over here, I have played Palladium, but only the Ninja Turtle RPG. So here, if we take a look, I'm over on the DM's Guild. You can get them all here in PDF form. But here's Stormwrack, right? So this is the sort of at sea version, which had a bunch of awesome stuff. And you can see there's a handful of different folks worked on it. It's the third and final environmental source book for 3.5. It was published in August 2005. Here's Frostburn, right? This was the sort of Arctic adventure. I have Frostburn up twice. Cityscape was their sort of one to deal with dealing with like open towns and cities. Dungeonscape was that, but for the dungeons, and then Sandstorm was the desert. So I really like this. We kind of have a Frostburn sort of in rhyme with a Frost Maiden. We sort of have a cityscape if you look at like Waterdeep. Sort of a Dungeonscape with Dungeon of the Mad Mage. Sort of a Stormwrack with Saltmarsh. And we don't really have a desert one per se. But these were specific adventures designed or source books to deal with those specific locales. And I think that is, I think we could use something like this would be pretty cool. Kobold Press, Goodman Games, or Frog God, best third-party publisher. I would say out of those three, Kobold Press for sure, but I would also say you should make sure you look at Nord Games as well. They're another good one. Yeah, the Hero series, Heroes of Battle, Heroes of Horror were really good. I find that a lot of my inspiration for a lot of the stuff that I work on, I go back and use my 3.5 books constantly. But yeah. I saw somebody mention something about like a ranger concept. Like making things change on a short rest or something. That is definitely something that I've talked about in the past because that was what I had done. Out of any third party, that's tricky because there's a lot. I never actually got around to publishing my Ranger fix. It's been sitting around for a long time. I should probably actually publish it somewhere. Hmm. Ghostfire is pretty good. Monty Cook, Matt Colville. I still like Cobalt Press, but you know, I've worked with them. I've worked on stuff for them. You know, I have a lot of love for Cobalt Press. What else we got? Here, I'm gonna try to pull up something. I can show you my fix. I'm just trying to bring it up here. There's some issues. Part of my the formatting got a little wonky. Where is it? Oh, that's weird. Well, it looks like it's fine. Okay. Well, by the way, here, you guys were asking about Ranger. I feel like I do this every so often, so you guys can get a little preview of my Ranger fix that I've never fully released, which I keep saying that I'm going to release, and then I absolutely don't. So here it is. I'll shrink my my camera down a little bit. Get me out of the corner. So I put a lot of thought into this. I haven't actually, I'll be honest with you, had a chance to play test it, um, because I just haven't had the time. But here it is. And I looked at it, and I based a lot of my decisions on what to do on the Paladin, because I said the Paladin, as I've said, I think is a quintessential, one of the best designed classes in all of 5th edition, and the closest analog to the Ranger is the Paladin. So if you're going to use something to judge it off of, I would say the Paladin would be a great example. So I'll just go through it. We can talk about it, and then yeah, maybe I will release it. Who knows? Anyway, so favorite enemy is something that you get at first level. You choose your type. You double your proficiency bonus for any ability checks based on tracking or recalling information. And then you add your proficiency bonus to any damage you deal to your favorite enemy. Now, the thought process there was favorite enemy as it stands kind of sucks. This is before Tasha's, and I think favored foe also kind of falters. And proficiency bonus is a thing they seem to like to use, so I thought that was always a good idea. And it's okay. I think that works out, right? And then I also said you get an additional enemy at 6th and 14. When you hit 6th level, you can change your favorite enemy on a long rest. And when you hit 14th level, you can change one of your favorite enemy types on a short rest. So it'll always be a useful feature. And my kind of thought process was lay on hands is something you get at first level as a paladin, and it's always useful. Natural explorer. I looked through a lot of stuff to try to figure out how I could make the Ranger a little bit different. So I also wanted to make them really good at being outside and hardening and being able to withstand the weather. So advantage on all survival checks, straight up. You can move at your normal pace while following a trail, and you can cut the time needed to find a lost trail in half, which is something nobody ever talks about. So I used that. While tracking other creatures, you can learn their exact size, the exact number, their size, how long ago they passed, and you can find food and fresh water for yourself and up to 5 other people each day, provided the land offers berries, etc. Yeah, that's my water heater going in the back, or my water softener. Then I gave them a sort of their quintessential thing they get at level 2 is Beast Companion. All Rangers get an animal companion, right? All Rangers get an animal companion. The Beastmaster Ranger, what you'll see eventually, will get a better version, but they all get an animal companion, and that's sort of their thing, because the Ranger doesn't have an identity in 5th edition. Every other class has an identity. Rage, Wild Shape, Sneak Attack, Smites, Auras, Punching, Unarmed Strikes, Step of the Wind, Multiple Attacks, Action Surge, all these things, right? And the Ranger has nothing, okay? So, Beast Companion, right? It's choose a beast no larger than medium that has a challenge rating of a half or lower. You add your proficiency bonus. This basically uses the standard pet mechanics that we've seen. Proficiency bonus to its AC attack rolls, damage rolls, as well as any saving throws and skills it's proficient in. Your Beast Companion is proficient with the same saving throws and skills as you are. This is the only thing I might want to change. I have here its hit point maximum is equal to your hit point maximum. That might be too much. I might just have to do the standard, like it's 5 times whatever, like we usually have. I had done this so that, like, if you wanted to buff up your hit points by doing different things, it would also boost your Beast Companion. But I think I need to change that to just be the standard, like it's 5 times your Ranger level or whatever. Like any creature that has hit dice. In combat, it shares your initiative. Takes its turn after yours. It takes the dodge action unless you use a bonus action to command it to attack, dash, disengage, whatever. It doesn't have multi-attack if it had it. And you can spend, if it dies, you can spend 8 hours communing to restore your Beast Companion to life. The idea, for the most part, is that this is probably going to be like a scouting thing. Some of the, like, I did it medium size or smaller and challenge rating half or lower, so that, like, there's not a lot of great options, and they will most likely, if the party or the enemy goes for them, they will most likely die. But it's a cool thing you could do. Owl for scouting, seeing in the dark, spider for climbing and looking in places. You know, I mean, you still can't communicate with it. It is still an animal, but, you know, either way. Fighting style, all this stuff is the same. Then I gave them Nature Sanctuary at 3rd level. When a beast or plant attacks you, they must make a Wisdom saving throw equal to your Ranger spell save DC. On a failed save, they must choose a different target or automatically misses. On a failure or a successful save, they're immune for 24 hours, and they're aware before they make this attack. I basically took this ability from the Nature Domain Cleric, which I thought was interesting that the Nature Domain Cleric has something like this, but the Ranger doesn't. The rest of the stuff remains the same until we get to Land's Stride. It's got a little bit of a change. You get it earlier too, 6th level. You pass through non-magical plants without being slowed. And you have saving throws, blah, blah, blah. It's the same thing that I think the Ranger either gets it or the Druid does, but you get it at 6th level. I gave them Evasion at 7th level because the only way that they could get Evasion in the Hunter Ranger, but they get it 7 levels after everybody else gets it. So I just gave them Evasion. It's a thing they have now. Hang on. Vanish is at 10th level. Hide is a bonus action and can't be tracked by non-magical means unless you want to leave a trail, which I think was a pretty cool thing as a ranger. Natural Fortitude at 14th level. You gain proficiency in Constitution saving throws, and you can move twice the normal amount of time, up to 16 hours each day before being subject to the effects of a forced march. Again, stuff probably nobody even looks at, but I thought it fit the class, so I put it there. And then the big thing is at level 20, all creatures are considered your favorite enemy. That's how we tie it back to the first level, where favorite enemy lets you add your proficiency bonus to the damage of anything that's considered your favorite enemy. When you hit level 20, you're a foe slayer. You can slay foes. Everything's your foe. Everything is considered a favorite enemy. They don't have to be an archer, and that's kind of, I'm okay with that if they don't want to be. So then we get into Hunter, and we had to change Hunter because we made some adjustments here. So Hunters get spells, Hunter magic here, right? Entangle, Magic Weapon, Haste, Greater Invisibility, Hold Monster. Those are their spells. We gave them the spells like all the other Ranger classes have. Hunter's Prey remains unchanged. At 7th level, we took away Evasion. We added it in earlier. We messed around with some stuff. So now at level 7, you get Escape the Horde, Multi-Attack, Defense, and Uncanny Dodge. I also thought that they got Uncanny Dodge, I think, much later on, and rogues get Uncanny Dodge at 5th level. So I kind of just shuffled some stuff around. Multi-Attack gets no changes at whatever that is, 11th level. And then Superior Hunter's Defense at 15th level. You get Hunter's Ward, immune to poison and disease in the poison condition. Stand Against the Tide remains unchanged. And then I gave them Iron Will. You cannot be charmed or frightened. So that was that. Well, anybody can shoot from cover if you just pop behind cover or take the sharpshooter feat. I don't think a ranger needs to be pigeonholed into being an archer. I don't think any class needs to be. That was the benefit of prestige classes, right? Back in the day, if you wanted to be an archer, focus on being an archer. And then we have Beastmaster. Okay, so they get new spells, right? Here you can see Find Familiar, Warding Bond, Aura of Vitality, Dominate Beast, and Awaken. I also thought it was interesting because you're kind of losing the potential scouting option of your and your Beast Companion, because yours is going to be much better at fighting, that you can get Find Familiar to still have that. I thought that was pretty cool. Then at 3rd level, you can also bond with a beast of challenge rating 1 or lower. So it's still medium size, hard gated at medium size at 3rd level, but it's now up to challenge rating 1 or lower. That gives you a couple more options. I thought that was pretty cool. Then I made them kind of similar to the Battle Master in that they have tricks. And tricks are essentially Battle Master maneuvers. The tricks all have fun names, and they let the Beast Companion do different things, right? They get a trick die. They get 3 trick die at level 3. They get an additional, they learn 3 tricks at level 3 and an additional one at 7, 11, and 15. You get 4 trick dice, which are D6s, and then at level 7, you get another one as well as 15. And you regain all of your trick dice when you finish a short or long rest. Again, I made it like Battle Master maneuvers. And the saving throw DC is Dex or Wisdom modifier, your choice. At 3rd level, you can share a spell targeting you. You can share spells. It also affects your Beast Companion as long as it's within 10 feet of you. At 7th level, you can bond with any large or smaller beast with a challenge rating as high as CR2. And its attacks are considered magic. At 11th level, your trick die increases to a D8. And at this point, it now shares your evasion ability, which I thought was good to help keep this thing alive. You're focusing your entire identity on this Beast Companion. It should at least survive in the fight. And then at 15, it gains the benefits of your favored enemy and natural explorer features, so it can also deal extra damage to creatures, and the share spell range goes out to 30 feet. Then we have the tricks, right, which again function like Battlemaster maneuvers. Now again, this may be overpowered when you think about it because you're going to be actually getting all this damage, and you could do this as a bonus action on top of your regular attacks as a ranger. So again, things to consider. But trick 1, that's also, I've had a lot of fun with the names. So we have Body Slam, right? You expend a trick die to attempt to drive the target back. Add a trick die to the attack's damage roll. If the target is larger or smaller, it must make a strength saving throw. On a failure, it is pushed 15 feet away from your beast companion. Fetch, you tell your beast companion to go take something from someone. You add the trick die to the attack's damage roll, and the targets make a strength saving throw. On a failed save, the beast companion takes the object that from your opponent or the person you send it after you. We have Go for the Eyes. When your beast companion hits a creature with an attack, you can expend a trick die. You add the trick die to the attack's damage roll, and they must make a con save. On a failure, they're blinded until the end of your next turn. Go for the Throat. Same deal, a con save, except it's incapable of forming speech or casting spells with a verbal component until the end of your next turn. We have Guard. As a reaction, when an ally is hit by an attack, you can expend a trick die to have your beast companion use its reaction to move to an ally within 30 feet and take the damage instead, causing the ally to not take that damage. Instead, your beast companion takes the damage. The damage is reduced by the roll of the trick die. On my mark, when you make the attack action on your turn, you can forgo one of your attacks aiding your beast companion strikes. When you do so, you expend one trick die. Your beast companion's next attack is made with advantage. Add the trick die to the damage roll. Protect Me. If you are the target of a melee attack and your beast companion is within 5 feet of you, you can use your reaction to expend a trick die. Your beast companion uses its reaction, and you add the roll of the trick die to the AC until the start of your next turn. Search and Rescue. I really like this one. On your turn, you can use a bonus action and expend one trick die to have your beast companion revive an ally. When you do so, choose a friendly creature within 30 feet of your beast companion that's at 0 hit points. Your beast companion moves to that creature, and that creature gains hit points equal to the trick die plus your wisdom modifier. And this was kind of like a lick wounds thing. Maybe I should put some like flavor text in there. That's why. Sick'em. Your beast companion hits a creature with an attack. You can expend 2 trick dice and add those to the damage roll. Takedown. When your beast companion hits a creature with a melee attack, you add the trick die to the damage roll, and if the target is larger or smaller, it must make a strength saving throw. On a failure, it's knocked prone. Track. As a bonus action, you can expend a trick die. Your beast companion adds the roll to their next survival check to find or follow a trail. Watch Out. When your beast companion is damaged by an attack, you can use your reaction and expend 1 trick die to reduce the damage it takes by the number rolled on the trick die, plus your beast companion's dexterity modifier. And this last one, I liked including it, but I might remove it, was We Heal as 1. As a bonus action on your turn, you can expend a trick die if your beast companion is within 30 feet. You and your beast companion regain hit points equal to the trick die plus your wisdom modifier. I like it, but it's probably OP, and I get that. So, and then again, I took the concept of the Baldur's Gate 3 one and made variants for that based on what you could get from Baldur's Gate 3, right? Because you choose the Pursuit at level 1, and then here's the different options for that. And I have my little design notice here, and then I have Natural Explorer again based on replacing the original Natural Explorer feature using the Baldur's Gate stuff, how you would do the different ways of that as well. Can I read the fetch trick again? Sure. When your beast companion hits a creature with a melee attack, you can spend a trick die to attempt to have your beast companion take an item of your choice that the target is holding. This is basically like a disarm, was the thought process. You add the trick die to the attack's damage roll, and the targets make a strength save. On a failed save, your beast companion successfully takes the object you choose. Yeah, I understand. Favored terrain is pointless, and so is favored enemy as it stands. They don't do anything. They're not mechanical benefits. They're purely based on the DM, the ones that exist in 5e as we speak right now. You get a couple of languages, and again, you pick 2 or 3 total, and then the whole identity of your class is based on things that you might never encounter, and no one wants to have their entire class be pointless. Yes, I realize some of that could be based on the DM having the conversation with the player, but having your favorite enemy locked in hard and that being basically the entire definition of your class, and then not being able to do anything with it is just the worst. That's a horrible design, and that's a horrible feeling as a player to just sit around and not be able to use what you focused in. I mean, I even remember back in the day, even when it was much more impactful, even in earlier editions, where a party member of mine had picked like gnolls as their favorite enemy, and we didn't fight any gnolls at all until that campaign ended, and we never fought gnolls, so she never got to use her favorite enemy ability. And like that sucks. But if she could have changed it, maybe when we got to a higher level, that could have been useful. So Dragonlance is coming. What other setting would you like to explore? I don't know. I always throw out like Ghost Walk as a random one because most people forgot that that one exists. I don't actually have any love for Ghost Walk. I just like to throw it out there to see people's reactions, to see if people actually remember that it exists. But I don't know. I wouldn't mind seeing. I don't know. I think Planescape could be fun. A lot of people seem to like Planescape. Planescape rather. Dark Sun. A lot of people are also worried about what it would look like because it'd obviously have to be different, just the way things are handled. But yeah. Yeah, making sure your players get to fight their favorite enemy obviously makes the most sense, but again, not everybody thinks that way. Um, so, yeah, I don't know. Maybe I will eventually get around to releasing my Ranger fix somewhere on the internet. Um, anyway, yeah, Ghost Walk was kind of funky. It's just like one of the books that I've always had that I've like read casually occasionally, and I'm like, oh, nobody remembers that this is a thing. I don't know if I could technically. I guess I could technically sell it on my Patreon. I don't know if it where it falls in the open game license. We'll see. I also have a Necromancer level 1 to 20 class that I've been working on for a while. I should probably release that maybe around spooky season. I also was working on a penguin race for my homebrew thing. Um, yeah, I had a lot of funky stuff going on. I was also working on I haven't finished it, not even close to finishing it. I was working on a Ghostbuster themed artificer subclass, paranormal investigator. So we'll see if I can manage to get that put out. The whole concept behind that one is you get a proton pack, like that's your artificer bit that you get, so that you can like level up your proton pack and add stuff to it. Yeah, I got a lot of stuff cooking around. I don't know if I have the Necromancer. I don't think I have it in GM binder, but I think I have it. I think I have it in a spot. We could show that off too. What the hell? Then I'm going to bed for real though. I think I based it off of the Druid, was kind of like the chassis, if you will. I actually was writing it for a book that never got made, so I took it back. The people I was working with it on, I was like, yeah, I would love to put this in a. They're like, oh man, we love that, and they were like super into it, and then they just just didn't. Um, Dread Necromancer was awesome. I loved Dread Necromancer. So some of that is present in my Necromancer. Um, uh, Let's see. Oh, I have comments in here? I didn't even realize that. All right, let's see. I didn't even realize I had some people provided some comments. So bizarre. I also was going to publish this in a book, and I was going to publish this on the DMs Guild as well. And I decided not to because I wanted to not have to give it over to WotC if they wanted it. Because they can do that if you publish it on the DMs Guild. So I said I'd probably just sell this on my website. So here you go. This is my Necromancer. I even wrote like the flavor text for it because I was going to publish it in a book. Anyway, here it is. It is a regular, it's a D6 hit die spellcaster. Regular standard spellcaster. D6 hit die. It's intelligence based because we don't really have, at least at the time when I was designing it, a lot of intelligence based casters. So I didn't want to do charisma again, and I feel like we have a lot of charisma and wisdom. So, how is this not in Toma Beasts 3? It wasn't for what's it called? Which part? The penguin race or the necromancer? I don't know if you're talking to me or not, but either way. Here we go. So, spellcasting, cantrips, that's all standard stuff. Intelligence based. So you get Grim Focus, that is sort of your subclass at level 1, or do you get it at level 2? I think you get it at level 1. Focus spells are basically the spells you get that are auto-prepared. And your base thing here is Raise Undead. So starting at 2nd level, you witness a creature die. You can use your action to raise an undead version of it. You can use this feature twice. You get it back when you finish a short or long rest. I might change that to be long rest, but the concept was to build it around like wild shape. Your and I used obviously the same kind of level scaling system as wild shape. Your necromancer level determines the power level of the creature you can raise. Let's see, all creatures summoned in this way reset when you complete a long rest. And I basically used the exact same thing as the druid, right? No flying or swimming speed, and I give some examples. And then I said, what does it get if it becomes undead? It's considered undead. It has dark vision out to 60 feet, immunity to poison damage in the poison condition, and no longer needs to eat, breathe, or sleep. It shares your initiative count, and then I basically use the standard pet mechanics, right? Bonus action to command it to attack, to take another action. The action can be 1 in its stat block, blah, blah, blah. Standard ability score improvements. Tomb Tainted Soul at 10th level. You can hold your breath indefinitely. You don't require food, water, or sleep. Though you do require rest to reduce exhaustion and still benefit from short and long rests. And you age at a slower rate. For every 10 years that pass, your body ages only 1 year, and you are immune to being magically aged. And then at 20th level, you get Lich Form, immunity to poison damage, resistance to cold, lightning, and necrotic damage, and immunity to charm, exhausted, frightened, paralyzed, and poison condition. That was your sort of... That's basically a Lich at 20th level. And then Grim Focus 1 is the Minion Master. Also, I think I would need to change. This is some of them. This is if I released it on, I think, the DMs Guild. Because some of these you don't have access to. Like, I don't think I could use Ice Knife, or a handful of these I couldn't use. I'd have to just make this. I couldn't use Find Greater Steed. I couldn't use Evard's Black Tentacles. Because those would require them to be, those are in the open game license, so that's just how that is. But anyway, some of these you'd have to change up, but you get the general idea. Turn resistance, any undead created by your spells or your Raise Undead feature have advantage on saving throws against being turned. And then control undead, this looks like, is this all at, yeah, this is all at whatever first level. As an action, you can target one undead creature you can see within 30 feet. The target must make a wisdom saving throw, and a failure, it obeys your commands for 24 hours or until you use this ability again. An undead whose challenge rating is equal to or greater than yours is immune to this effect. And I gave this ability proficiency bonus, number of times equal to your proficiency bonus. That should probably say for long rest. because that just makes it seem like you can only use it that many times and it's gone. Improved summoning at 6. You can raise a creature equal to your necromancer level divided by 4, rounded down. Additionally, any attacks made by undead you summon via spells or your raise undead feature are considered magical. At 18th level, creatures you raise deal an additional d4 cold damage on their attacks. It goes up to 2d4 at level 14. And at 17, they explode when they are destroyed, dealing 3d6 necrotic damage to all creatures within a 10-foot radius. Then we have, again, the Reaper, which is sort of the Grim Reaper side, the martial version of it, which, again, things like Steel Wind Strike and some of these would not be allowed. When you choose this at first level, you gain proficiency in medium armor, shields, and martial weapons. And your hit point maximum increases by 1 and increases by 1 again whenever you gain a level in this class. So you get a little bit more hit points, essentially bumping you up to like a D8 hit die for lack of a, basically, so that you be a little stronger. At 6th level, you get extra attack. At 8th level, you get Soul Reap, which is when you slay a creature with a weapon, you gain a d6 hit points. At 14, it goes up to 2d6. And Fear the Reaper at 17th level. When you hit a creature with a melee weapon attack, you deal 2d8 necrotic damage to another creature of your choice within 10 feet of the attack's target. And then this is the spell list, right? Just again, you'd have to change some of these if you were to put it out not on the DM's Guild, because you'd have to remove the ones that were not usable there. I did also give it some interesting things, right? So it has obviously standard stuff that you'd expect a necromancer to have, but I also gave it Raise Dead, so it can actually bring people back to life, which I thought was interesting. And then, here you go. Here's the focus, the different focuses for it, right? Infused Skull, Lantern, Preserved Eyeball, Skeletal Wand. I gave some new equipment ideas too, right? Scythe, 2D, two-handed martial weapon, heavy, 2d4 slashing damage. Needs a unique property. I don't know. Maybe reach. When did I make this? I don't know. 4 years ago, maybe something like that. Maybe less than that. Flesh stitched armor made from the skin of fallen creatures. Light armor. I was trying to figure out maybe it had. You score a critical hit. Maybe they make a wisdom saving throw or be frightened because your armor is made out of flesh. I don't know. Or bone armor, functions like standard armor, except it's made out of bone. Maybe it gives you advantage on initiative or intimidation checks. And then I made a whole bunch of spells, too. Rending Claws is a necromancy cantrip. 1 action, 60 feet. Make a constitution saving throw. On a failed save, they take a d6 slashing damage, and you gain a temporary hit point. And then that just scales up as you go. We have Animate Lesser Undead, which is a first level spell that would let you animate things like I had Crawling Claws or Stomping Feet. Stomping Feet was basically an Acquisitions Incorporated undead monster, but basically you can summon lesser undead that way. Life Bleach is 2nd level, bonus action. Choose a target within range. They take a d4 plus your spellcasting ability modifier necrotic damage. You gain hit points equal to the amount of damage taken. That scales up. Grasping Darkness. You conjure claws, pulling enemies towards you. The claws cover an area of 10 feet wide and 10 feet tall. They rapidly move 30 feet towards the caster. You can send them out and they pull them towards you. Each creature in the area must make a strength saving throw. On a failed save, take 3d8 necrotic damage and pull towards the caster the length of the claw's movement. On a success, they take half damage and aren't pulled. A wall of bone here, right? Just make a big wall of bone, but then the thing is, if people are near it, the skeletal arms reach out from the wall and attempt to grapple any creatures adjacent to it. The wall also tends to grapple any creatures when they first move adjacent to the wall. And then let's see. Then I made an NPC here as well. So either way, it still needs some work on it. No, this is just my homebrew class. It's not in the Radiant Citadel. As far as favorite part of the book is probably the last adventure because it takes you to the Far Realm. No, that was just a homebrew class, level 1 to 20 class Necromancer that I've been working on for a couple years and just have never gotten around to actually releasing it anywhere. people were asking about it, so I decided to show it off. Probably release it. Maybe I'll actually put it out this time around Halloween. So, anyway. Oh, also, thank you for the membership there. Appreciate that. Why haven't I made a video on it or released it somewhere? Because I haven't, because it's not ready, in my opinion. A lot of people are telling me I should just release it. I want to put it out. Well, one, like I said, I'd have to release it on the DM's Guild if I release it as it stands, because I have access to spells listed in those spell lists that are not part of the open gaming license. And if I didn't release them on the DM's Guild and tried to release them elsewhere, I'd get sued by Wizards of the Coast, and I don't want that. So I have to edit those things. Some of that stuff needs polish, but I also need to put it in I can't release it in a Google Drive because that does not how that works. So I need to finalize it. I need to get artwork, cover art, all that kind of stuff to publish it in some form of a PDF. And in an ideal world, I think I'd like to put it. I could do it through Patreon, but I also was thinking I could possibly just put it, like, update my website to have like a store and just put it up on my website where people could just buy it, and then I get all of the profit from that, which is kind of cool. So I thought that might be something that I do. I thought about working with Taryn. Yeah, I know Taryn. We just ran a game together. We were just I just ran a game for him. I ran Don't Say Vecna. He was one of the players, so we could probably get something going for that. Yeah, I have two subclasses that are in the Jetpack 7 book, Blackstorm Realms. That's I think actually, let me see if I can find the latest version of the PDF. Did you use a custom Vecna? I used the base Vecna, but I added a couple little things. I talk about it in, like, we did like a post. I did my extensive review of it. I had done a couple of different things. Is this a book of adventures around a common theme? It's not a common theme like Candlekeep, but it's based around, like, the Radiant Citadel is a hub world. And the hub world is kind of, you have all these different sort of communities, and that's the different adventures, is kind of visiting the different communities. Do you think that come and see my new homebrew is the need version of, I'm going to see once etchings each? Yeah, kind of. Here. Adventures only, no new races. Nope, none of that. Here, I can show you guys this too. This is something that I did. For those of you who don't know, came out a while ago, Blackstorm Realms. It's not out officially. There's beta versions of the PDF from Jetpack 7. And if you scroll down, there's a couple of cool things. But I have some stuff I designed in here. Look, you can see my name, which shows up in a couple spots. Editing, proofreading, special thanks. I wrote the foreword for this book, which is pretty cool. This is all, like, the whole foreword. I wrote that. This is the first time I ever did that. That was awesome. Felt that was a good experience. But I wrote this cleric here. It's Gravity Domain Cleric. I wrote that. That was cool. That was the thing I did. And I wrote this Paladin too. That's cool stuff. That's gonna, like, be in an actual book that it will have a physical release. It'll be out, I think, hopefully by the end of this year. So if you see here where it says by Alex Lafort, he just added some flavor text. So I wrote a lot of the flavor text, but he wrote more flavor text that fit it to the universe that they built for this book, which was their version, kind of Spelljammer. Yeah. I think I had the version of the Gravity Domain is basically publicly available on D&D Beyond. I put it in there so you can go and snag it on D&D Beyond. But yeah, I don't know. They conscripted me to do two subclasses, so I said, I don't know, Gravity Domain Cleric sounds interesting. And then I made sort of a Starfleet sort of Prime Directive-y paladin here, which you can see the tenets of exploration for the Oath of Exploration Paladin are heavily kind of based around the concepts of Starfleet. And then, yeah, I made it kind of just based around being able to travel through space and do cool things. So that was something that people brought up about the gods of a gravity domain. So, where did I write that? Let's see. Gravity domain clerics are rare. The more though, this is this. They added more I had some knowledge in or some stuff in here about, but they added more things. Gravity domain clerics, strong-willed pragmatists. I'm trying to see because I had knowledge of basically any sort of like nature domain or law things. I'm just trying to see if they added in. Yeah, the original stuff I had written in here kind of got pulled out. Because I had written it again more as a generic thing. But basically, yeah, I said essentially any god of, yeah, they did pull that out. That's a bummer. I had put in basically any kind of god of nature or law could be a gravity domain or chaos. You know, it's up to you. Azathoth, yeah, possibly. Earth, I feel like any kind of earth domain, any kind of earth god would also fit. So I added in some quirks. I thought these were really fun, like to make your gravity domain cleric a little more unique, right? You glide rather than walk. Sometimes you touch things you touch start to float. When you sleep, you float 4 feet above the bed. When you bleed or sweat, the drops float upward rather than fall into the ground. Your weight fluctuates with your emotions. Here is someone's mentioned Newton, right? You're occasionally hit in the head by fruit. Most of the time is apples. So yeah, I had fun with my domain design. You know, it is what it is. So I tried to make things a little more interesting. I also thought there's not really a good movement-based cleric, so that was kind of the stuff that I put in here as well, right? Your jump distance is doubled. You don't need to move to make a running jump. Your speed isn't reduced by wearing heavy armor. You can kind of suck people in or push them out with a gravity well. You can't be moved against your will. You ignore difficult terrain. You get a movement speed boost. Divine Strike is standard. And then you just get a fly speed. And, you know, you get Reverse Gravity as kind of a domain spell. And then at 17, you can cast it once for free without expending a spell slot. But, you know, try to give you more things that is all about basically being a movement-based. So I guess you could argue a travel domain or like a travel god of travel could fit with this as well. Which box set? The one that's coming out at the end of the month. The new one that's gonna have basically the new starter set with the cartoon characters in it. I haven't heard anything. I'm on the lookout. I've been checking at Target every time I go in case somebody drops a copy early. But nothing yet. If that's what you're talking about. And then yeah, I made the opposite. Same kind of. I guess I stuck with kind of the concept of movement too with the paladin. I did the same thing. Like, how can I have something, you know, that lets you move around and do different things with that as well. So yeah, I had a lot of fun with it. But these are available in Blackstorm Realms from Jetpack 7. You can go pick up the, I think the beta. This is a version 2 of the beta. It's still being developed. There's some more stuff. And it also, funnily enough, which is a further thing, you could use this in a Spelljammer campaign, and it would probably work perfectly. So there you go. You could use the Gravity Domain Cleric or the Oath of Exploration Paladin in your Spelljammer campaign. So that works out well. So I do think I'm going to call it quits, folks. I have some videos that I've been working on. I have one about my gaming table that'll be coming out, about helping me design my new table that'll be coming out maybe tomorrow. I have a thing about 3D printing coming out, and some more stuff next week. And I'm going to start. I'll have to show you guys in a future video all of the backup stuff that I have, like just the pile of shit that I haven't reviewed. So. Anyway, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.